ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this week's edition of the Sunday Wire. I'm your host, Patrick Henningsen. We're streaming out live on the Alternate Current Radio Network and also on the live streams on X right now, Rumble, YouTube, also on, BitChute, bit of a problem. We'll talk about that later in Overdrive. The online safety bill has come online in the UK, and a lot of websites are pulling down their platforms because they can't keep up with the UK's rigorous censorship and, quote, content moderation scheme. This is a clear end run by the government in Britain to shut down a lot of content on the internet under the guise of online harms, things that could harm people or offend people. It's hard to know which is which these days. Anyway, unfortunately, no live stream on BitChute anymore. We'll see how that situation develops. We're also on Facebook Live right now, as well as on the audio streams after the show, usually on the audio podcasts like iTunes, Spotify, and all those other platforms. I think we'll even have the video program on Spotify as well. So look for that on your subscription downloads. We've got a couple of big stories we're going to be covering today. Of course, we're going to be joined by our team members during the Overdrive segment. I think Hesher, Ruckus, Basil Valentine is going to be joining us as well to comb through some of the biggest stories domestically and internationally from a U.S., European, and international scope. So we'll get right to it. I know a lot of people online are talking about the train wreck that is the Douglas Murray interview with Joe Rogan and Dave Smith. I guess it was a kind of a debate, and never has there been such a glorious meltdown of anybody. The last one I can remember is Kathy Newman on Channel 4 when she interviewed Jordan Peterson. That's kind of like that moment. So Douglas Murray had his Kathy Newman moment this past week, and boy, was it a glorious train wreck. We'll get into some of the details of that in a moment, but let's hit the big story, and this is what we're going to be leading off with. And of course, this discussion is going to spill over into the Overdrive segment here. Peace negotiations or de-escalation or nuclear talks, whatever you want to call it, between the United States and Iran. This began in earnest yesterday. We had a massive Twitter space, big forum, brought on some fantastic guests. We did that on X last night here. Had a very good attendance, for averaging about 1,000 listeners in the room at any given time. But we went through all the details, at least the initial reports that we had some access to, as to how the negotiations, the opening round of, quote, indirect negotiations. This was held on neutral territory in Oman with representatives from the United States and Iran as well. Oman basically playing the facilitator in this. There's a lot to unpack here, but it's important to realize the tension in the region, especially after what Donald Trump did just last week and sent this threatening letter to the Iranians, basically saying, if you don't come to the table to renegotiate the Iran nuclear deal, the JCPOA type agreement, the one that Trump himself destroyed in May of 2018, if you don't come back to the table, then we're going to basically do a preemptive strike and take out your leadership, take out your civilian nuclear power plants. I mean, Israel is demanding that Iran allow U.S. or the Israelis or something to blow up all of their civilian nuclear facilities, enrichment facilities, etc. They're calling this the Libya solution. How did that work out for Libya, by the way? Libya is not there anymore. Country's gone. So the lesson from Libya is, if you comply with this level of threat, the West, Israel, NATO, whoever, they're going to come for you anyway. So the Iranians are not dumb. I mean, you don't get to be a 5,000-year-old civilization like Persia without learning a thing or two from history. And of course, they've learned that they have to prioritize their national sovereignty above compliance with Western diktats, especially when they're coming from somebody like Donald Trump. And Donald Trump sent his chief envoy. That's the guy there on your left-hand side. His name's Steve Witkoff. And, you know, as rich as these guys are, I always point out they have so much money, but they can't actually afford to get a suit that actually fits. I mean, look at Steve Witkoff. It's embarrassing. So you'd think they'd have a tailor somewhere in Manhattan. I mean, these guys could afford to fly to London and get fitted up in Savile Row and be back, before dinner in Manhattan. I mean, that's how wealthy these guys are, but they can't dress themselves. Donald's not much better, as you can see, with the hat on. But let's dispense with the jokes and poking fun at these men. The point is, what were they trying to achieve here with the Iranians? And they've sent their forward team here, Steve Witkoff, who is not Secretary of State. He's not, quote, an official diplomat. He's sort of like Trump's warm-up guy, okay? I call him a meter and greeter, basically. So, like, if you go to a casino, the guy who is repping the owner of the casino, like Steve Wynn's guy on the door in Vegas or whatnot, that's, he's the sort of right hand, if you will, at least the front of house right man of the boss. That's kind of like what Steve Witkoff is playing that role. He's a very nice guy, very personable. We saw his interview with Tucker Carlson. Very nice guy. But, does he have the skill set, a diplomatic skill set that's necessary to put together complex deals? The Iran situation is one of the most important geopolitical situations really in the world right now. So, I mean, this is high stakes geopolitics. Millions and millions of lives are at stake. And do they have any qualified diplomats on the Trump team? Okay, doing property deals, and I've said this before on previous interviews, doing property deals in Manhattan or the tri-state area, putting up a casino in Atlantic City, this is not like international relations. If you notice, everything Trump does is about taking the leverage, using that leverage to push the other party into a corner before you begin negotiations, okay? And people say, oh, this is the art of the deal. Haven't you read Donald's book? That might be good for like making money in property, dealing with Teamsters, dealing with corrupt city officials that you have to bribe to get planning permission, and dealing with the unions and all that. Okay, fine. That's great. International relations is not like that, okay? You can't go in throwing your weight around and expecting the other side to somehow comply with your demands or even meet you halfway. The other side normally will say, we're not going to meet until you come with a little bit of humility and we'll meet in the middle. This is how you do diplomacy, okay? Donald Trump, I don't even get into the tariff thing. We can talk about that maybe in the Overdrive. That was a big L, by the way, for Trump. Massive L for Trump, okay? China. He threw these did a tit for tat tariff war, then suddenly lifts tariffs after, said, oh, we're going to suspend it, as I predicted on X. I said Trump is going to do a 90-day or a pause. He's going to, because all his donors are going to be upset because their long positions are going to be hit on the stock market. And of course, that's what happened. So he drops tariffs down to what, flat 10%. And then, but China, he leaves it on. Then the Chinese reciprocate. They say, no, we're not going to budge. Then Trump goes, I'm going to punish you, 125% tariff. And then Japan comes back and says, 130. And then Trump says 145. It's just ridiculous. Okay. He started an economic war with one of the most powerful economy in the world, China. And if you know anything about negotiations in Asia, the first thing you're taught when you're learning about business or international relations, when you're dealing with the Chinese or anybody in Asia, okay, what's important in Asia is you allow the other side, even if you have a disagreement, you allow them to save face, okay? You do not want to have the other side lose face, because this is a bad place to be if you're negotiating with Chinese or Japanese, okay? What does Trump do? He causes them to lose face before they even start negotiations. You're not going to go very far with the Chinese. I mean, that's just basic 101 stuff. I read that just by reading, Richard Nixon's memoirs and the types of people that he had, professionals doing these sort of international shuttle diplomatic missions. Okay, Trump doesn't have anybody, it seems, that's qualified or able to do any of these basic things. So what happened? China didn't blink. Trump blinked. And then all of a sudden, they're lifting tariffs on all these essential high sales Chinese consumer goods, electronics. So art of the deal? I don't think so. I personally, I think it's art of the I don't know what the hell I'm doing. That's the title of his next book. So the other thing with Trump is, and not to get off on a tangent here, but it is kind of central. If you took a business course, okay, let's say you went to, let me think of a high profile business school. Let me think. How about Trump University? If you went to Trump University, the Business 101 class, golden rules in business. Donald should be able to tell you this or not. Golden rule is never overpromise and underdeliver. Okay? Cardinal sin in business. Same in politics, especially in politics. Okay? Don't overpromise and underdeliver. Okay? If you're the art of the deal, the master of the art of the deal, you should be able to at least grasp that basic concept. Okay? Don't overpromise and underdeliver. What has Trump done before he even got into office? I'm going to end the Ukraine war in 24 hours. Okay. Theoretically, that's possible if you know what you're doing. And if you don't cave to Zelensky and to the war lobby. And basically, he should have said, I'm cutting off weapons and then we're going to sign a peace deal. And all of a sudden, the media machine and the Eurocrats, everybody, the Ukrainian lobby, everybody just piled in and he caved. So guess what? There's no deal in Ukraine. It's status quo. The U.S. is supplying weapons and pumping money into that conflict as well. Russia's saying, well, if that's the way it's going to be, we're going to carry on because we need to secure our national security priorities. So here we are. He had an opportunity, Trump, to go in and do something productive, bring the conflict to some kind of negotiated settlement and save lives. I bought into that sales pitch. Many did. That's why many people voted for Trump, just on that single issue. And he's got another big L. Okay. Donald, you're racking up L's. You remember when he campaigned, he says, we're going to win so much, you're going to get tired of winning. We're going to win beautifully and we're going to win bigly. Okay. I see no W's. I see L's. L in Ukraine, Gaza ceasefire. Steve Witkoff, the genius. Where are we on the Gaza ceasefire? No ceasefire. Israel is basically carpet bombing refugee camps with tents, with U.S. bombs. So another big L. Another L. Tariff wars. Is that a W? I don't think so. Stock market crash, trillions of dollars wiped off the market in terms of market cap globally. A recession is certainly coming into view now. Inflation, stagnation in terms of economy, stagflation. Tell me where stagflation is a W. That's a big L. So even on the economy, the thing that Donald Trump is supposed to be some type of, savant stroke sage on all things to do with money, the only people getting rich or doing well are him and his billionaire friends. I'm sorry to point it out. They even boasted about it. Charles Schwab in the White House with Trump, boasting about how much money that they all basically raked in doing short positions when the market was crashing last week. A crash that was induced by Donald Trump's own policy. They all had advanced knowledge of it. These guys were shorting the market from February. They knew this was coming. All these people that are connected enough that have the resources made out like bandits. What about the working people? What about normal folk? Normal folk saw 20 to 30% of the value of their retirement savings or their 401k wiped off the map. So how does that make America great? It makes you guys great. You're doing well. These guys are doing extremely well. They're doing great. Everybody else is doing really lousy. Okay. The idea, and now we're getting to the point. The idea that Donald Trump is somehow representing the working class is fast becoming one of the biggest con jobs in the history of politics. This is classic late stage empire. Okay. This is the best America has to offer. And don't say that, Joe, you think Biden was better? That's a very low bar you're setting up there. Okay, comparing anything to Joe Biden is a joke. Okay, Biden himself was a joke. So to be better than Biden, you could put your pet cat up for president and probably be more popular than Biden. At least the approval rating would be higher. Probably the performance would be better on many levels as well. At least there'd be a pacifying effect. Donald Trump is like a disaster so far, and I know people are going to say, "Oh, you're just a Trump." Listen, I was defending Trump from 2015 when everybody was attacking him to give him a fair shot. Yet he was saying all the right things. He wanted to shake up the system, wanted to be a change agent. I can support a populist candidate. If it's on the Democratic side, probably going to have to be a little more centrist. But a lot of us gave Trump a chance, and here he came in the second term, made some big promises, and I don't see anything being delivered. A lot of hype, and the billionaire class, Elon, they're doing great. So the Iran talks, where is this heading? Another L. What is the first thing they said? Donald Trump said, "Oh, we want to have direct talks with the Iranians." And the Iranians said, "No, we are not having direct talks with you, Mr. Trump and your team." And guess what? Trump caves. Another L. Trump caves, and then Trump says, "We're going to decide the location of the negotiations, these indirect negotiations." And Iran said, "No, you're not. We're having them in Oman, in the Emirate of Oman, just on the lower rim of the Persian Gulf." Why? Because they have a very good relationship with the Omanis. And guess what? The talks were in Oman. Another L. 0 for 2. So I think that in a way this was good because it brought the U.S. to an initial consultation, let's call it. What they didn't really negotiate anything. They talked about the nuclear issue. Okay, the whole issue of the Iranian proxies, Yemen, and this wasn't, to my knowledge, it wasn't discussed. Okay, it was really about the nuclear issue, and also about I would think the discussion on sanctions probably would have come up as part of that. Okay, because the last nuclear deal, they gave Iran sanctions relief, and they started trading with Europe, with the United States. And Israel went completely mental and pushed the Trump administration hard in May 2018 to back out of this deal that Obama signed. And again, I have to caveat this so people don't think I'm a partisan. I'm not a Democrat. Okay, sorry, not. Haven't voted Democrat for a long time. Okay, but one of the most useful things that Obama did, very few useful things internationally, he was a disaster from a foreign policy point of view. He started about 6 new wars, a peace president. But one of the most useful things he did was the Iran nuclear deal. Took 2 years to negotiate, 2 years, 20 months, from November 2014 to July of 2015, 20 months. And the lead envoy on that was the U.S. Secretary of State, who at the time was John Kerry. Okay. Notice that Marco Rubio is nowhere near this for Trump. What does that tell us? One, Rubio is a complete lightweight. He's absolutely useless. He was picked because he would be subservient to Trump. Trump doesn't want anybody that will exert any independence or throw any weight around, or no one of substance. Okay. They always have to be second tier. Look at how he selects his cabinet. Okay. Now, Witkoff is his old fixer and his old buddy from Manhattan. Okay. Trusted pair of hands for Trump Incorporated. So he's the forward envoy. He's become the Secretary of State, effectively, at least on the negotiation side. Okay. So no Rubio. We've got Witkoff and a few other various and sundry people who are effectively advocating normally on behalf of the state of Israel. Okay. That's kind of what it is. So, and what have they got from Iran on this? They probably got an understanding that they can move forward with talks, and that's it. So they will schedule a series of meetings starting next Saturday. And I think personally, I think the Iranians pulled a blinder here. Okay. With all these threats, forward threats, the U.S. putting their B-52 bombers and their B-2 bombers at Diego Garcia, long-range bombers, all of their naval assets being positioned. So it looks like they're preparing for a war with Iran. Okay. And Iran, by engaging the U.S., what you have to understand is this, okay? A lot of people talk about Trump, his crypto genius schemes that he looks like he doesn't know what he's doing, but it's really 5D chess, okay? Or 6 million D chess, okay? He's a genius. He's got it all figured out. Trust the plan, okay? QAnon mentality, QAnon mode. Donald Trump is not a chess player, okay? Donald Trump plays checkers, okay? Power checkers. Power checkers. Who invented the game of chess? Let me think. Is it the Arabs or the Persians? Who's really good at it? Russia. But the Iranians are master chess players. You see, because the time horizon on their game is probably a couple of hundred years. Okay, they're a civilizational state. The great civilizational states on this planet, we're talking about a state, a culture that's wrapped around a civilization. China, good example. I will even put Japan in that category just because there's just some very unique and special characteristics of Japanese culture and society. I mean, we could say that about a lot of Asian countries if you really want to drill down into it, even Korea. Okay, but very much expressed in Japanese in all aspects of their culture, political life, literature, poetry, art. Japan is a civilizational state, small one. China is a large, successful civilizational state that goes back thousands of years, 6,000 plus years. Okay, that's what you're dealing with China, the brain of an elephant, long-term memory culturally. India is a civilizational state. India, okay, great civilization. If we want to go back to pre-Sanskrit or early Sanskrit Vedic Indus Valley, 6, 7, 10, 12,000 years. I don't know. Who knows? Persia, 5 to 6,000 years. Those are civilizational states. Russia has become a civilizational state with very defined characteristics in terms of language and culture, religion as well. And there's other civilizational states that we could throw in there. America is not one of them. Okay. So America is very short term in their thinking because it's a very young country. And that's reflected in the attitudes and the rhetoric that you're hearing from people like Trump, but not only Trump, but he just is the most extreme example of it. Okay. So Iran's pulled a blinder. They've drawn the U.S. into negotiations. As long as they keep them in negotiations, Iran is safe. Okay, and I'll even say that they, well, in the Middle East, they play backgammon and not checkers and chess. And backgammon is a wild game. And backgammon is a game of risks as well. If you gamble and you play backgammon for money, you've got balls of steel, basically. So what Iran's doing is a combination of backgammon and chess on the United States. The same with Russia. They've engaged the U.S. into some kind of negotiation process. Trump doesn't know what he's doing. Russia's taking advantage of it and saying, well, you clearly don't know what you're doing. Steve Witkoff couldn't even name the territories in Donbass. He couldn't even name the new regions that are part of the Russian Federation, like Donetsk, Lugansk, Zaporozhye, Kherson. He had no idea. He said, "Oh, the provinces or whatever." So he's not fussed with the details. Hasn't done his homework and that guy's in charge of negotiations. I mean, it's kind of bizarre if you think about it. So that's where things are at. I think the U.S. privately is probably on a very, again, like Ukraine and Russia, on a very steep learning curve. They're way behind the Iranians. Okay, all they know about Iran is what the Israeli lobby has told them on a talking points memo that arrives at their desk in Washington, D.C. every morning, which tells them what to say, how to say it, if anything to do with Palestine, Israel, Iran, or the Middle East. Okay, most congressmen and senators are as dumb as a box of rocks. And I can tell you that 100% certainty. They don't know anything about anything. They're completely reliant on whatever their aides put it in front of them. And who's giving their aides the talking points memo? It's coming from J Street. It's coming from IPAC or the bevy of other Israeli lobby or think tanks like the Heritage Foundation, okay? Neocon think tanks. That's where they get their worldview from. So when they enter into negotiations on serious stuff like nuclear nonproliferation or preventing World War III, they really don't know what they're doing. They don't know where they are. They don't understand the geography. It's very simple. In previous administrations, okay, like Richard Nixon, Jimmy Carter, John F. Kennedy, and we've spoke to people who worked in those administrations. We've interviewed them, okay? The types of diplomats and intelligence briefings they get, that their forward guy, or their James Kennan, or their Caspar Weinberger, or their Cyrus Vance, Henry Kissinger, Zbigniew Brzezinski. These people know the history from the beginning of the inception of that country. They will go into the Iranian negotiations knowing the entire history of Iran, the history of all of the neighboring countries. They will know the date they were independent, what revolutions happened, what the current sort of foreign policy portfolio looks like, past conflicts, battlefield analysis of past conflicts. They will know, in short, everything that leads up to that moment, okay? And they would have studied the previous Iran nuclear deal meticulously. Know every single loophole, every single in and out, totally fluent and conversant. Why? Because the Iranians are going to be at that level. And so if you can't meet the level they're at, how are you going to negotiate or know if it was a good deal or a bad deal or understand the ins and outs of it? You won't be able to actually have any real meaningful discussions. You'll be in over your head, and you'll have to go say, oh, time out, let's meet again, go back and hire some people or bring in people to explain what actually has been said, and then go back and look at the agreement that you've been saying was a bad deal for the last 7 years when you didn't even read it to begin with. Okay, that's kind of where we're at with the Trump administration. So it's very worrying that, and I don't believe for a second that they're just playing stupid in public and that there's some master plan behind the scenes. No, this is not happening. Okay, you would have seen some kind of articulate explanation by now, and there's been nothing. Okay, all we've seen is like ignorant statements, mad tweets, like rants on True Social, doing policy by social media. It's embarrassing. But that's kind of where we're at, folks. How can you support this if you're a conservative, or if you voted for Trump because he was the peace candidate? Okay, he has started a war in Yemen, losing war. He is threatening to start a war with Iran. He is supplying weapons and bombs for Israel to slaughter tens of thousands of Palestinians. They're killing. They just bombed a hospital yesterday, the Baptist hospital. Why on earth would you be using F-35s, stealth fighters, to destroy hospitals? The last operational hospital in Gaza. Unless your goal was to wipe out the population and force everybody living there to force them out of the area so that you can redevelop it and turn it into Dubai, because that's the plan that's being articulated right now in Israel and in Washington. So forced ethnic cleansing under threat of death. When has that ever been acceptable? But that's the policy. Trump's even explicitly saying this. Oh, they're going to have to move. It's terrible. It's so much death in Gaza. Oh my goodness, Oh, this is they can't live there. It's not good living conditions, says Trump. How did it get that way, Donald? How did it get that way? Did you have something to do with it? Did your country, your government? Don't blame it on Biden, okay? Because all those bombs have an American flag on them. It doesn't say Biden on them. It says made in the USA. So own it. Take responsibility. This is also one of the problems with US politics. It's become so partisan and polarized that nobody wants to take responsibility as a country, as a government, for what the last government or administration did. And that's the correct thing to do. If you're transgressed by another country, you're not going to sort of give the next government a free pass because they're, a different government. It's ridiculous. Trump has broken and backpedaled and flipped and pivoted on every single negotiations. He is personally responsible for destroying the original Iran nuclear deal that was working perfectly fine. And Israel said, tear it up in 2018. And he did. And that's why we're in the position that we're in. So I think if Trump continues to employ the Kubler-Ross grief model for this NLP negotiations tactic, it's a cheap sales tactic, which he does, which is threaten the other side, make people angry, and then start bargaining from there, and push the other side to think they have limited options, and get them to accept a lower sort of position. Okay, this is what he's trying to do with foreign policy, and everyone's saying, "Oh, it's art of the deal: escalate to de-escalate, peace through strength." Okay, no. If you study international relations, you study diplomacy long enough, you will find that this is the path to failure, and worse, it's the path to war. This is exactly how World War I started. The Austro-Hungarian Empire, after the assassination of Archduke Ferdinand, okay, the Austro-Hungarian Empire put huge demands on Serbia, huge demands. 1914, huge demands. And there were demands that were almost impossible to meet, okay? And they said, if you don't accept or, comply with all of these specific demands, I think there were 10 things that they were compelling the Serbians to do at the time. And Serbia complied with all of them except for one. And Austro-Hungarian Empire said, nope, that's not good enough. We're going to war. And in the headlines, Austria-Hungary chooses war. And everybody else piles in. We have one of the worst human disasters in history, one of the worst, most wasteful wars. And then the aftermath of World War I gave us the map of the Middle East, gave us Nazi Germany, and gave us the abject horror and absolute disaster that was World War II. Okay, and that all came from this lack of ability to engage in diplomacy. So what did we do? We constructed the United Nations after the Second World War. We did all these. We had passed the Genocide Convention. Everybody ratified it. Geneva Convention against war crimes. Everybody said, we're on board with that. Other institutions came on. International Criminal Court, which I don't like so much. I have my own criticisms of that. Nonetheless, the intention on paper, at least, is okay, acceptable. WTO, World Trade Organization. All of these different, so many institutions, organizations. It was designed to try to harmonize the international system. And for a while, a lot of aspects of it were very successful and lifted many, many people out of poverty and created what I think very much peace and stability in many parts of the world that the United States wasn't bombing. Okay. Those areas which the US was not bombing or attacking were doing pretty good. And what's the United States done? What's Trump done? It's withdrawn from all of them, as well as all of the missile and arms control agreements with the former Soviet Union and Russia. That's why the conflict in Ukraine is more dangerous, because there are no safety valves like the ABM anti-ballistic missile treaty, like the intermediate nuclear forces INF treaty, like all of these treaties were basically there to provide some kind of a safety valve, a backstop, to make sure that things do not careen out of control. And they've all been destroyed, lifted, they've withdrawn from, sabotaged them. The Minsk Peace Accords, that was ratified by the United Nations Security Council in 2015. US, Britain, France, everybody signed, Russia, China, everyone unanimously signed. That was the peace process to avoid a war in Ukraine. And guess what? The US, the French, and the Germans sabotaged it intentionally to give time for NATO to arm the Ukrainian armed forces up to, quote, NATO standard from 2015. They were preparing for a war that they wanted, okay? NATO, the West, wanted that war to happen. They did everything humanly possible to make it happen, and to hell with the United Nations Security Council. All could have been avoided. So we're seeing this pattern repeating. That's another L for America, really. It's just another one. So if the Iranians, or the Russians for that matter, but the Iranians are looking at all these lapsed agreements, sabotaged agreements, lies, backpedaling, betrayals by America, why would you want to sign anything with the United States, especially with Trump? The record is very bad. Okay. Doesn't make any sense for them. So they're going to, well, we're going to hold out. They're going to attack us anyway. So we might as well stay sovereign and take our chances and maybe buy time to, negotiate and develop some kind of pact with our allies. Makes perfect sense. What the US is doing 7,000 miles across the world trying to start a war does not make sense. Okay. And we know they're doing it on behalf of the state of Israel and the Israeli lobby, but this still doesn't make sense. It's definitely not in America's interest. And quite frankly, it's not in the Israelis' interest either. It's not, because Iran's proved twice they can reach out and touch Israel. Last April and again in October with 2 missile attacks. And they were light. As the Iranians stated, they're sending a message to Israel. The next time, they're going to be much heavier. And what's going to become of the state of Israel after that? Who knows? But do you want to take the chance and find out? Certainly wouldn't be a wise path to take. But, we're dealing with crazy people, completely insane people. So anyway, the tariff wars, a complete joke so far, a complete loss. It's done a lot of damage to the economy. What more can we say? And as far as the Iran deal goes, Witkoff, not impressed. Witkoff is 0 for 2. He's about to go 0 for 3. Trump's 0 for 3 as well. They're going to be 0 for 4 by the summer when the Yemen thing collapses. I mean, if the Republicans lose the midterms and the Democrats had a spine, they'd impeach him for an undeclared war of aggression without going through Congress. But hell will freeze over before the Democrats ever invoke the Constitution when it comes to the War Powers Act of the U.S. federal government. But that's another debate. That's another story. Look, we didn't have time to get to the Douglas Murray thing, but we'll probably have a little bit of a chuckle probably in Overdrive with our colleagues Hesher, Ruckus, Basil, Valentine will also join us. So I'm going to save the Murray clips. This should be a fun roasting of, and no one deserves it more than, if anybody's more deserving of a roasting Nobody is more deserving than Douglas Murray. Nobody deserves it. And just again, we did a Twitter space last night, very well attended. Ibrahim Majid, who was my guest on the Midweek Wire from Beirut, he was my co-pilot on that space. So that was pretty long. I think we probably went about 5 hours, just over 5 hours, had all kinds of panel speakers up. The discussion was interesting. Big economic component in there as well, with Simon Dixon, one of the top Bitcoiners and cryptocurrency advocates in Britain. He joined us as well. So that was a very interesting discussion. So do check us out on Spaces. That's up on my feed. Just scroll down and you'll see the rest of that. So we're going to take a break right now. When we come back into Overdrive, we will be joined by our team members. So be looking forward to what they have to say. In the meantime, is the music of Joseph Arthur. Be back in just a few. Stay with us.
Brothers and sisters, when being divided, don't believe what they say. Hold on to your soul. Everyone divided in an echo chamber hole, saying that the enemy doesn't have a soul.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Sunday Wire. I'm your host, Patrick Henningsen. We are streaming out live at 21stcenturywire.com. Hello to everybody in the 21 Wire chat room, as well as on the other streams and live platforms. Great to see everybody. And this is episode 543 of this weekly omnibus news and analysis program. Again, brought to you here at 21 Wire, alternate current radio, as well as YouTube, Rumble, X, Facebook Live. Unfortunately, no longer BitChute. It's now been taken down in the UK. So big story there. We might discuss that during the Overdrive segment. We'll be joined by some of our team members in just a moment to discuss some of these, get some reactions on the big stories. Plus, we've got the Douglas Murray, Dave Smith debate on Joe Rogan that is absolutely swarming the social media feed. So I'm sure everybody has something to say about that. Drag a few clips in as well. Glorious clips of Douglas Murray, basically suicidal train wreck type stuff. Couldn't happen to a better person. So let me bring on to the stage without further ado our colleagues from ACR. Host of the Boiler Room is Bryan McClain, aka Hesher, is joining us on the live link right now. And also, let me bring up for this episode as well, Ruckus, who is host of the Daily Ruckus on ACR. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us for this.
See you guys.
Overdrive segment. Firstly, I want to get your reactions on, have you guys been following the Iran negotiations, round one, as it were? Trump dipped his toe in there with the Iranians. Hesher, Ruckus, any thoughts?
Well, I haven't been following it as deeply as you have, Patrick, but I have been following your X account, so I've been getting short blasts throughout the last 24 hours or so. But I appreciated the breakdown in the first part of the show there, and it's not looking good, man.
Yeah, I think it's established contact. No promises beyond that. But I think it's actually good that at least it's in some kind of negotiations, and even if it's not going to go anywhere for 6 months, means that we might be avoiding a war. So
right. I mean, the line of communication, it was kind of the same with Putin. It was like all this bluster, all this war, all this death, over 500,000 people dead, approaching somewhere between 500,000 and 1 million now between the two sides. And it's like, we didn't even have a line of communication open. We didn't even have embassies open. We just, Biden just closed all that crap down and started, confiscating super yachts when he felt like it. So, that administration just completely shut down all comms. So even though I think things are kind of, very sketchy, on all of the war fronts and potential war fronts, at least there are lines of communication. The big question, the longer term question is, what are they going to do with their lines of communication, especially considering it, everything you laid out, about the history, going all the way from pre-World War I to where we're at now.
Ruckus, any thoughts on the nuclear talks?
I ran so far away from this one, I wasn't paying that much attention. I thought the news was all about tariffs and Trump and China. At least that's what was been blasted to me. So I basically missed all of the exciting news that were once again, ever closer to World War III. Are the scientists going to get together and adjust the doomsday clock over this one, like they fretted oftentimes over the Ukraine thing? I think not. Perhaps they might adjust the doomsday clock the longer free speech rights carrying individuals continue to open up their mouths and protest the genocide taking place in Gaza. That's far more dangerous to the plan. So yeah, very concerned that I hear from your reporting that Witkoff is on the scene. So what could go wrong, right? I mean, we're probably in trouble now.
Correct. And yeah, for a full breakdown of the first round, or I just call it a meet and greet in Oman between the Iranians and Trump. There, it's up on X Spaces. That was last night. Did 5 hours and 20 minutes. I know that don't expect everybody to listen through the whole thing, but if it's good passive listening, if you're out doing landscaping, jogging, walking the hounds, hunting, fishing, and that sort of thing, you can definitely take in this X space. So we full breakdown, brought in some of the best minds in the world So it was quite an extraordinary panel discussion. So I do encourage people to go there. But yeah, this is it, guys. The fate of you, the world, your the next generations. It's all down to these guys. You know, you should have a lot of confidence that they know what they're doing. The fact that Steve Witkoff can't even get a suit that fits is quite shocking in itself. And that doesn't look particularly good on Trump. I don't know. There's just something weird about it, but it's sort of growing on people, I guess. It's become kind of normal, but not much better than Elon in that respect. So that's where things are on that front, guys. Now, I'm sure you guys heard about the Joe Rogan podcast.
Caught a couple clips. Woo!
Oh, do you now? Have you got some clips for us?
No, I just watched a few, man. I didn't save any, but I watched a couple 5-minute clips, and it was just like, oh my, wow, this is going wide. That's the thing. Like, you see conversations like that with Douglas Murray sometimes, and you're like, okay, go back to your little internet corner there of social justice and all the other things you're interested in, which many people agree with him on many topics. It's kind of like a Jordan Peterson type character, where it's like, achieve fame on the back of the culture war, and then when the and you have so many people asking you your impressions on geopolitics, well, I guess you got to give them, and I guess it didn't go very well for good old what's his face here? I don't know, blanking on his name. Yeah.
He's easy to forget. He's easy to forget. Douglas Murray.
To forget him. I try to forget him. I try to treat him as someone like Jordan Peterson, who, when you see him, you just say, "Oh, what are we talking about today? Oh, geopolitics. Goodbye. On to the next tile."
You'd be happy to know that him and Jordan are good friends.
I'm sure.
Close working colleagues. So yeah, there is no coincidence there. So Douglas Murray has been platformed by conservative organizations and groups, and heavily funded by Israeli interests. Okay, Henry Jackson Society is a think tank in the UK that's very, very pro-war, pro clash of civilizations, basically talking up any possible war or neoconservative mission somewhere in the world. They're pushing it. He's with them. In fact, he was one of their sort of leading officers in that organization. He's been on Fox. He's feted by the right. He's kind of like, I don't know, what are your guys' impression of just Douglas Murray? I don't know, Ruckus or Hesher, like just your just initial impressions of the man.
I'm blessed to not even know who I would not be able to pick him out of a lineup of blue check marks on Twitter. But I'm guessing it would be something I recognize thanks to all the other blue check marks on Twitter. I'm vaguely familiar with who he is, but I don't follow him. I don't care. I don't know his history, his past, or his future. So yeah, I'm in the dark on this one, guys. I do know who Dave Smith is. I do know whose opponent, as it were, in this case.
So, Hesher, your impressions of Murray.
Well, honestly, I gave the guy a lot of grace for a really long time because he was featured in a film that one of our colleagues was a major player in, as far as behind the camera and in front of the camera. And I really enjoyed that documentary. We watched it at one of our meetups, one of our creator meetups between ACR and 21 Wire. And I didn't disagree with anything he said in there. That was really good commentary. He is, by all appearances, when not talking about geopolitics and talking about human psychology and, relationships and culture, he's bright, and much like Jordan Peterson. I give all these guys, points where points are due. But man, do they really tip the scale of interest and disinterest when they come out and they start, doing Israeli PAC, APAC style talking points on geopolitics. It's just like, get out of here. You're discrediting yourself. What are you doing? And if this is really, the kind of hatred for humans that you can have underneath all of this intellectual stuff, I'm sorry. It's like I understand the culture war very well. And guess what? It's already lost. It's already done. That's happened, and we now have a massive swath of people in the West who are victims of the culture war, who are NPCs of the culture war, who are absorbers of, propaganda and bullcrap. And it's like that war is kind of done. It's an easy win at this point. There's no switching anyone's sides. Only the brainwashed themselves can decide to try to help themselves out of that situation of being embroiled in the identity politic of culture war. And many of those people will come there with age and with, their wallet getting stomped on and their ego getting stomped on long enough. Many people will escalate out of that or evolve out of that. But for the most part, it's indoctrinated into our schools. It's indoctrinated into business. This current administration is doing some earnest work to root out some of the systemic, pieces of it, pieces that have been made systemic via legislation and policy. So that's kind of cool. But, like so many things that this administration say they're going to fix, they're grabbing all the low-hanging fruit for it, stroking the head of the dog of the MAGA and showing them all the winning that they're getting. And that's the other thing. It's like you've got people brainwashed with the identity politic on the left, and then you've got the more establishment wing of MAGA and the establishment wing of GOP. Those people are just as brainwashed now. The Q mindset is like inherent in that mindset. So again, the polarizations are completely switched. And getting back to people in this intellectual dark web, you guys should stick to your manosphere stuff. You should stick to the easy stuff, guys. Like, you're good at that.
Yeah.
But you make an ass of yourself in front of tens of millions of people on Joe Rogan. Oh boy, I didn't look at any of the Twitter comments under some of his posts, but I'm guessing it's just a massive avalanche of ratioing of you're a dum-dum.
Yeah, it's not good. It's not good. I agree with you, Hesher. It's like keeping men out of women's sports. I think that's a good place for people like Douglas Murray and or Dave Rubin. They're kind of LGBT conservatives, so let them fight that fight against the trans men, and I think that's perfectly a good place for them. But when it comes to heavyweight issues where you need a degree of objectivity and a little bit of compassion for the human condition in order to advocate for sane policies, these people are completely psychopathic. And that's kind of like what's come out. Now, the big thing, and I'm going to play this clip, and this is a really important discussion. I'm so glad. You guys know how much I've criticized Joe Rogan for being, and he was actually good on this. I
thought so
loved
too.
it, kind of Big Lebowski style, kind of, I don't know, this kind of righteous aloofness that he had, where he just kind of, he could have been stoned, but he stumbled his way through it gracefully, like the Big Lebowski, like the dude. So Rogan played the dude perfectly in this one. I was so impressed with how it was almost like magic how he did it. I couldn't have even done that with Murray in there, and then you get Dave Smith on the other side talking mostly sense, and so I like. So, but what came out of this, I think, is so important was this idea that because you haven't been there, that you can't talk about it. And that's the important part of this discussion that came up. So basically, Douglas Murray is saying in this, I'll play this clip now. He's basically saying, I've been to Israel, you haven't, so you have no right to talk about it here. And you have to have been there even to make a passing comment. Okay. So that's, we get a lot of that in the expert realm where the experts are saying, shut up. During COVID, the vaccine thing, it was all about the experts. And we were being criminalized for having an opinion about our own health, or our own safety. So we'll listen to this here. And I think this is a good one. Let me just cue this up here in the right place. So this is Murray basically setting up this kind of argument. And we'll play this, and then we'll discuss basically what's come here. Let me get this set up. Okay, this is Douglas Murray on the Joe Rogan Show with Dave Smith.
No, there was not starvation in Gaza after 2005. No, there was no deficit of goods coming in. I've been plenty of
There was
times.
no deficit?
No, there are
No
plenty
goods were
of,
kept out.
There are plenty. How many? Have you been to the crossing points?
No.
When were you last there at all?
I've never been.
You've never been?
Well, am I not allowed to talk about it now? Have you ever been to Nazi Germany? Are you allowed to have feelings about them?
You can't time travel, but you
Well,
can.
right.
But you can travel.
Okay, but so what? So what's the point? Like,
No,
okay.
I find that
Lots
very...
of people have been there and agree with me, and lots of people have been there and agree with you.
Yeah, but
so
if
I don't
you're
know
going
what
to
the...
spend a year and a half talking about a place, you should at least do the courtesy of visiting it.
all right. I just think this is a non-argument.
You don't
but
think?
okay. So you're not
That's
allowed to
amazing
speak
to
about
me.
things that you've read about. You can only speak about things that you've seen with your own eyes.
Hello, I'm Douglas Murray, and I am really, really, really into freedom of expression. I'm an extremely intelligent and logical man, and I am very, very much into freedom of expression and freedom of thought, except on certain things.
I think that's Edward Dutton there, giving his pastiche at the end. We could go back and go to Ed Dutton's Jolly Heretic. Here we go. That's his account, the Jolly Heretic on X. But so just based on that, Murray setting up this argument, and he really got panned for this. Really, the internet crushed him. So this was his Kathy Newman moment. You remember Kathy Newman, Jordan Peterson, that interview where Peterson just basically steamrolled her, and mainstream media was half destroyed after that. So this is one of those moments, but it was even better because Murray is a big advocate of neoconservatism. He is a big, here's one of his books, by the way, just to give you an idea. Neoconservatism, Why We Need It, by Douglas Murray, 2006. So, you know, he's right on the cusp there, the cutting edge of neocon land, right? So that's like what you're dealing with there. So basically, I thought Dave Smith handled that pretty well. Some stuff I would have criticized him on. He caved on all the October 7th talking points, and he allowed Murray to steamroll him on those. But I think this is actually an important thing that comes out into the big public debate. What are your guys' thoughts?
Yeah, well, first off, I could not help but notice how steamrolly Douglas was. You know, I saw him doing that. I saw him do the October 7th steamroll. I saw him do the sort of "what's wrong with you" passive blaming. If you think this way, you're a monster. You know, like he sets the whole narrative up the way that AIPAC would love him to set it up. But that argument right there, when's the last time you've been across the crossing? You know, are you kidding me, dude? That's you know, the guys in the intellectual dark web, they love to point out when people use logical fallacies. Well, guess what? Douglas Murray used a logical fallacy here. He's using appeal to authority, I think, and riding on that only, you know, which is absolutely ridiculous. And even Joe got frustrated with him at one point, and in that, you know, Lebowski sort of tone was like, would you let him finish? You know, like there were a couple times where Joe did a really good sort of like stealthy moderator style there, you know, hey, I'm just trying to understand and I need to hear both sides. You know, there was really that kind of vibe. So I felt like, you know, number one, it's freaking fantastic that this is going out to more than 10 million people, and and his big episodes that get a lot of, you know, clips made, they go wider than 10 million people. So this discussion between these guys on Joe Rogan and the ongoing discussions on Candace Owens' show and some of the things that Tucker Carlson has said has led to what I'm starting to perceive as a planned, not necessarily planned by those individuals I just named, but a planned, this is the result of what I've been talking about since Kanye showed up on X, right after X started, and he showed up with the net and the Yahoo drink and all that. I said, this is different. This is the opening of the Overton window, and it's going to start sliding to the point where they want people talking about the political Zionism topic, and they know which conservatives are not going to bend on this. So let's just amplify it. Let's just open the floodgate here. Let's turn the algorithms down. You know, they might not turn everybody's algorithm down. Wink, wink, nod, nod. Three of us and some others. But all of a sudden, it's a huge topic. And I think it's being allowed or done on purpose so as to bifurcate and fracturize the conservative movement. And we're forced into that now. We are forced into that. There has been a time between 2022 and right now where conservative, even conservative mainstream media and a lot of independent and alternative media have been fellow travelers, kind of arm in arm, until October 7. And then it started to burble. And then the Overton window of the algorithms allows us to all talk about it. I mean, we're having this discussion on YouTube right now. That wouldn't have happened a year ago. It wouldn't have, that we would have got a strike.
Yeah, vaccines are risky.
Yeah.
Vaccines are YouTube. Vaccines are risky. That would have just been a strike.
Yeah.
Right there. Maybe my channel might have been deleted.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. That's why we stopped broadcasting on YouTube for over a year. As soon as we hit the monetization point, we started getting strikes. And I said, well, I'm just going to put the lid on this thing and set it, let it collect some dust for a few months, because I had a feeling this shift in culture, allowable discussion in our culture on this topic was going to go somewhere. And here we are. We're the small fish on YouTube talking about it, but the big fish on YouTube are out there talking about it all the time. So effectively, there's infighting in the conservative group right now, and that's not a good thing for us conservatives. If we can call ourselves that. I know the three of us here kind of waver back and forth and won't really pick a side because both sides are corrupt. We like one side better for other things, one side better for the other things. But every time any one of them is doing something, we're looking deeper, trying to figure out, well, where does this go in the long term? What's the actual policy? Can we strip off all the social media veneer and the winning and losing and talk about where this goes?
Where the problem is, Hesher, is foreign policy. This is where, and this is, Americans, especially on the right, have trouble resolving those issues. Whereas on the left, they have trouble on the domestic issues. And they're right are pretty much on the same page domestically, and they're all over the place internationally. The left are all over the place domestically, but they're all on the same page internationally. So this is like the yin yang dilemma of U.S. politics. I mean, Ruckus, you have to weigh in on this issue. Go ahead.
Well, I think you're in trouble with the YouTube thing. I think I heard it from the RFK Jr. himself that vaccines are good. So we should not be saying that vaccines are risky. The only reason we can get away with things now on YouTube that we couldn't before is they like people who say, we don't like Elon Musk, we don't like Donald Trump. We're certainly in the favor of YouTube right now for that. I have noticed that they still put up the... they put up a fact check on your video, Patrick, as well as the Boiler Room about JFK. I was
Really?
like, why are we putting... Yeah, so they got this little, hey, go here to learn about what really happened to JFK. And I'm just like...
Oh, what?
Wow.
Oswald. We got the Oswald post, didn't we?
Yeah, they still do it for climate change, too. I was noticing they do that for weaponized news, which I'm on frequently.
YouTube's like the lone gunman theory. They're pretty set on that one at YouTube HQ. Lone gunman.
But I think that the third rail is still the same one that it's always been, no matter which platform you go to, which is this other discussion about Israel, which is what you guys are talking about. That's what you're talking about, Hesher. I think you're implying that is the conversation that is now welcome for people like Ian Carroll and people on Joe Rogan and Candace Owens and all of those folks to talk about. But we're still not allowed to talk about it without fear. I mean, gosh darn, if you talk about that in the UK right now, you might get a visit from the Popo just because you like to tweet somewhere. I mean, things are getting crazy. Popo, I mean the coppers, the police, of course. So
the old Bill,
Douglas
the old
Murray
Bill.
Thing,
We
that
call
what,
him
yeah,
Bill.
the
What's
their nickname?
The old Bill. Yeah.
The old Bill. I like that. All right. Well, that's
The old Bill, mate. Get a visit from the old Bill.
You don't want that, so what, because they carry the billy clubs. Perhaps?
Yeah, no, it's I think it's the bill on the helmet hat thing.
Now, the clip that you shared with Murray, again, not very familiar with his work, but I'm like, right away, these are two starkly different people sitting in that room right there having a conversation, if that's what we can call it. The stodgy, very professor, I mean, full to the brim. He's dressed nice, or nice enough anyways, but he's got that conversation. He's very intellectual sounding. He's got the British accent, and then you got like Dave Smith in his hoodie Just like, yo, wait, what do you mean? What do you mean? What you talking about? Like, I can't talk about it. Like, so it's like very different presentation and very different I mean, like, is that on purpose? The dichotomy cannot be, yeah, it's obvious. I mean, you could watch that on mute and witness their body language and the way they carry themselves and the way they present themselves. And it's interesting that the decided winner in this argument is Smith versus the stodgy professor type. But I'm not surprised because we've got Elon Musk jumping on stage and doing salutes and stuff. So it is what it is.
Yes, that's right. Don't forget who the media is, guys. Don't you forget. So, so you guys will love this. Someone did a little searching on Murray's argument is that if you haven't been there, you got no right to talk about it, especially if you're wearing a hoodie like Dave Smith. So
Patrick, sorry
what?
to interrupt. I have a question though. I haven't been there. I've talked about it a lot. You've been in the region, and from what I've learned from you and other people, if you can't just get a ticket to Israel, right? Flying to Tel Aviv or whatever, and then just motor on over to the crossing and just go through. Like, this is the kind of thing where
I can't go.
They won't even let you in.
No,
so it's like,
yeah,
they probably wouldn't let Dave Smith in either.
No.
Like, he's already off the list at this point. But if let's say there's someone like him that wants to go in, someone of that mindset, correct me if I'm wrong. The way I understand this is like you have to petition the government, you have to get a police and military, entourage basically to tour you around, and they will take you to very specific places, show you very specific things, tell you how to analyze what you're looking at, and then take you to the wall and put the little hat on you and make you smooch the wall. Like, nobody wants to do that.
Oh, they took Murray. So Murray went on a paid propaganda junket by the Israeli government. So that's his access. So they took him to the October 7th kibbutz tour. It's like the usual thing. Zelensky does the Bucha tour. When you go to Ukraine, brings the politicians on it and stuff like that. So someone did a good mashup on Murray. Okay, let's look at this. So you note the argument that he's made. Note the argument, and then let's watch this excellent mashup that was done by Good Morning Liberty. We'll bring this up on stage here. This is just about the best thing. So look, guys, as self-owning goes, this is a piece of high art. This is among the best things ever put on the internet. I'm telling you right now, folks, you will be absolutely. So just remember the arrogance, the pompousness of Douglas Murray. So this is Douglas Murray versus Douglas Murray on, quote, lived experience. Get a load of this.
Have you been to the crossing points?
I really resent that form of argumentation.
When were you last there at all?
Sure.
I really resent it.
You should at least do the courtesy of visiting it.
This is not an attractive invitation.
I think it's a good idea to see stuff, particularly if you spend a career talking about something.
I have the right to talk about whatever the hell I want. And no one's going to stop me or try to intimidate me. And I think that if I said to somebody else the other way around, it would be equally reprehensible.
I have a journalistic rule of trying never to talk about a country, even in passing, unless I've at least been there.
If I said, shut up, you have no right to criticize anything that Douglas Murray says because...
Hang on, you're talking about crossing points. And not only have you never been to a crossing point in either Egypt or in Israel, but you've never even been to the region.
Okay. It's not an exact comparison, but seriously, is that a reasonable form of argument? No. In that case, nobody can talk about anything. We might as well pack up, go home, and isolate ourselves.
If you're insisting that you're an expert of some kind, or not claiming you're an expert, but still talking about it, if you've never seen any of this going on.
I mean, there are some people who've written about there are people who've written about the Holocaust who didn't experience the Holocaust and have written about it better than people who did.
But that is a different matter from spending an awfully long amount of time talking about an issue in a region you haven't even had the courtesy to visit, whilst developing all of these views about it.
This idea that the lived experience has to triumph over everything else is not always correct.
Should at least know what it is, what the territory is, what the situation is in the region.
So there's an irony to this, but let's skate over the irony.
Ladies and gentlemen, that is just about the best takedown by Douglas Murray of himself. Have you guys ever seen a better self-owning than that one? That's pretty epic.
I might take
Fantastic.
this as a sign to stop talking about Epstein's Island, because eventually someone's going to, how, have you ever been there? No, I have not. So I guess I have no right to talk about it.
Have you ever been to Vietnam? Or do you know the horrors of the Vietnam War enough to say
enough.
that it was a pretty effed up situation for anybody that was sent there? Of course not, you know.
I've never
But,
used TikTok. Thank God I can stop talking about TikTok now.
So props to, you know, Dave Smith for standing up to this arrogant, self-preening, pseudo-intellectual Douglas Murray, and then waiting for the self-owned mashup afterwards that completely vindicates Dave Smith, which I think is just poetic. So again, probably one of the most productive programs Joe Rogan's ever broadcast. Quite frankly, it's one of the best, most productive. So, you know, props to Joe Rogan. He scored some points in the good column this week. So we're very happy to report that. And we encourage him to do more. So that clip, by the way, of what you just watched, I think was Douglas Murray on Lex Fridman, so which is a euphemism for a sleeping pill, basically. Lex Fridman. That's another interesting character there. Him and Douglas Murray are best buddies. You can kind of work it out. They're on the same page on this sort of stuff. But yeah, he is really one of the most arrogant pseudo-intellectuals that you will find. And, you know, these guys, the British guys especially, who sound very intellectual, as Ruckus said, intellectually sounding, but not actually intellectual. They come to America and they just sort of walk all over people like Murray does. And people they defer to, he gets deference from Americans in the media. They're totally hands off him on Fox. If you guys noticed him on Fox, he's treated like he's some sort of superhero.
Yeah.
Conservative icon, you know, Douglas Murray. Oh, author of, here's another one of his books, by the way. This is what he had on the desk while he was on Rogan. He was shamelessly plugging his book. He had this thing standing up on the desk next to him. It's called On Democracies and Death Cults. Guess what the death cult is? Of course, it's Islam. So he is Mr. Clash of Civilizations. He is backed and talking up every war. He's pro-Ukrainian war. He's actually against Trump for trying to negotiate a peace settlement. Murray, okay? Mr. Conservative, loves hanging out at Mar-a-Lago, getting his photo ops, and paid press junkets to Israel conservatism, why we need it. Okay. So, yeah, he has seen the front lines. Let's look at what he has seen on the front lines as well. This one really takes the cake. You guys will love this. This is actually a still photo taken from his account on X. I've seen some pretty effed up things, but this is something special. Here, let's bring this up. This is from Douglas Murray himself, the big war journalist. Here he is. So this is Murray, guys, in Gaza, and he claims to have found the chair where they killed Sinwar, Yahya Sinwar, the Hamas leader, the guy who basically shot threw his gun at a drone because he was out of bullets before they killed him while he was wounded in battle. Literally the head of Hamas fighting the Israelis from bombed out buildings. I mean, he has legendary status among Palestinians. And Murray, with the IDF as his personal guard here, has gone to look for Sinwar's apartment and to get this photo op. Look at this. First of all, I'm just going to say that I've never seen a photograph so camp. That could be the profile page on his Grindr account. But this is just the most silly thing you can imagine. He's wearing the press vest as well. So this thing is camper than, you know, a row of tents or a Christmas card, as far as I'm concerned.
Did you say he was killed in that chair?
Sinwar was. We're led to believe. I actually did a little check on that, and it's not the same chair.
That was my first thought. Is this just a good enough for the picture sort of thing? Like,
yeah, it is. That's pretty. That makes it even dumber. really.
Would you
Or-
guys honestly? You walk in a room and somebody says, "Hey, this is the chair where somebody was killed." Oh, I want to sit there.
Take my
Who does
picture there,
that?
dude.
You're right. I don't think that is the actual chair, which makes this both fake and gay. So,
Yeah, I don't see
there we
any blood on it. Like, if he was already injured when he sat in it and then they executed him, I don't think the chair is going to look like that. I would even take that chair off the side of the road and bring it into my house. That one looks all right.
This is the only time you can get away with saying fake and gay in sort of an intelligent context.
Yeah.
Here.
Well,
So-
All right,
okay.
Hesher's the real badass. This guy's only willing to sit in the chair where somebody died. Hesher wants to take it home.
Yeah.
What a-
Yeah, well, we spell gay Ghey in these occurrences. So it's
no,
fine.
we don't. I spell it Gheye.
Yeah, that works too.
Because that's the French spelling.
Right.
The French spelling. Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah. Gheye. Fake and gay.
Yeah.
So there he is. I like the sunglasses, Douglas. This is a great look. I'm sure you caught a lot of attention from your cohort, and I'm sure the nightclubs were fun in Tel Aviv, weren't they? When you did your R&R after the big photo shoot, Douglas. Very brave war correspondent, Douglas Murray. Look at him putting his life on the line. He's been to the crossings. Have you been to the crossings?
Oh, I can't talk about this, man. I've never been there.
Have you been to the crossings? You haven't been to the region. It's preposterous what you're saying, Mr. Dave Smith comic. So, so anyway, that guy is just, it couldn't have happened to a better person. He is getting annihilated. He'll never recover. He's probably going to go into depression, and who knows? Start drinking heavy. He'll be hiding in Budapest.
Let's
or
not
somewhere.
forget about this guy's visit to Israel, Patrick.
Ooh, wow. That's another comedian. Not a good comedian, though. Jerry Seinfeld. So he's with the IDF. I think he was doing some tourism, wasn't he? With the Israeli occupation forces.
Well, it looks like, and I've heard that it was murder tourism, you know, and I've heard about this in other conflicts where, you know, people with money and access and like-minded politics are allowed to go into certain regions with special forces people, and it's like a hunting thing, you know, like you can get a hunting guide here and you can go, you know, learn to bag yourself an elk or a deer or whatever. Well, elites, I guess they go to places like Israel and they get their first confirmed kill, you know, for the right amount of money and the right amount of PR. And I'm hearing rumors in our Discord that Jerry Seinfeld's wife hired goons to beat up anti-Israel protesters. So a lot of kind of nasty rumors swirling around Mr. Seinfeld these days.
Yeah, Jerry Seinfeld, funny guy. He's a barrel of laughs, but nothing's funnier than this, folks. That's that really takes the biscuit there. 5.7 million views. That was posted on October 20th, 2024, by the brave, the gallant British quote war journalist and conservative pundit Douglas Murray, who has now been panned so bad. When's the last time you've seen a panning this bad, guys? I mean, can we think of anybody self-owning,
Biden.
panning, just generally annihilated? Is there anybody? I mean, even John Fetterman never self-owned that bad. You know, he's kind of recovered, actually. Fetterman's kind of, you know, even though he's an arrogant leftist, he's recovered. It's like he's doing counter memes now. I mean, so I don't know where Murray can go on this. This is bad. It's really bad. Because he is that squeaky clean, pristine, like I'm above the bullshit kind of thing. That's his brand. But so was that a good move for him to go on Rogan with Dave Smith? But he sold it to him. Rogan's people sold it. They put them both in the same room. I mean, so they must have told Murray, or like, yeah, you know, you can say what you want to. And Dave, he must have wrote off Dave as some, you know, idiot, you know, wannabe libertarian
Is he
comic
going
who
to be on
dabbles in
Sean
politics.
Ryan's show next? That's the bigger one now, right?
Which one? Which one's on?
Sean Ryan?
Willie
Who's
B.
going?
Murray.
Who?
Wouldn't that be interesting?
Murray on? I don't think he'd go on Sean Ryan. I mean, I don't think so. I think he's going to stay away from the U.S. kind of podcast circuit unless it's Dave Rubin.
I agree. At this point, at least, I don't think I have a sneaky suspicion that Sarah Adams has like a pretty high position. I know she's on the Sean Ryan show staff now. I don't know what her exact title is, but I'm guessing it's like, an executive producer sort of thing, something like that. Yeah, totally. So after seeing that, I don't think she, as sort of his CIA liaison, if we can imagine her as such, I'm not making any claims here, but that's just how I have to parse it, knowing what I know. I think she would see that as something completely toxic and bring in someone a little more military oriented for that particular audience and more effective at pushing that political Zionism line.
They haven't seen his photo of him in the chair. They might change their mind.
That's true. That could be a game changer if they're not familiar with him.
Oh yeah, the chair. My goodness. Okay, so good news. I'll give you guys some good news. You remember 3 weeks ago we talked about I floated a solution for the Iran nuclear standoff. Okay, so some good news is it's gotten some traction, and so one of the leading Iranian accounts, one of the media accounts, basically said that Iran wants a nuclear-free Middle East. So yeah, this is what we put up 3 weeks ago here. This is a possible solution to the Iran nuclear dilemma, and basically saying that. And again, this is just, I think, who could argue with it except for, hardcore Zionists, Israel supporters, and neocons. Why don't we have a nuclear-free Middle East? So Israel has to declare its nuclear weapons and sign the non-proliferation treaty and open themselves up to inspections from the international community. Who's going to argue with that? Because guys, isn't it dangerous to have a country that has 200 or 300 warheads that are undeclared in the region? And isn't it even worse that the United States would be demanding that Iran, who doesn't have any proven nuclear weapons, submit to destroying their civilian nuclear energy program because Israel, the country that has nuclear weapons but won't declare them, insists that Washington take this action? Is that not the most messed up scenario you could possibly imagine? And wouldn't this just be a decent solution for it? Well, many Iranians think so, and it's starting to get some traction. And if this can be a mainstream talking point as a possibility, I think this would be a positive development. I think something about shining the light on secret things that have been hidden for so long has a kind of healing factor. I think in this case, I think it's actually central to the argument. I think it takes a lot of power out of Israel, out of their hand, to have to declare this type of stuff and be accountable to a higher power in the international community. Perhaps they're going to kick and scream, they're not going to accept it, but just the mere fact this becomes a conversation piece within the negotiations discussion or within the political discourse internationally, I think is very positive. So that's what we wanted. We wanted it to become a talking point, and I think it's starting to become a talking point now. So we're very happy about that. So some positive stuff. And listen, if we can only do, if we can inject some talking points into the conversation, and more people are saying the right things, I think they're going to be productive. Then yeah, that's our role as independent media, because the mainstream aren't going to tell you. They're not going to go here as terms of an option. No way. They've been avoiding this one for 50 years. More, 60, you could say, if you count, JFK. So it's been a while. It's about time Israel comes under the. And I'd love to have that debate with Douglas Murray, actually, I'd love to do that debate on Rogan or whatever, Lex Fridman, pass the sleeping pills around.
Couple Quaaludes and get started.
Yeah, here we go. Here we go, guys. Dramamine. On my new Lex Fridman, my new podcast is Dramamine, where we'll be delving into some very important areas of discussion. And now for our sponsor, ExpressVPN. Okay. So you guys, I can fill in for Lex. I can put people to sleep.
Oh yeah, sure.
That'd be fun.
Easy.
Easy.
He does not have a coffee sponsor program going, does he? He doesn't sell coffee, right?
No, what he should do is just open up the podcast and then have a camera angle on a cup of coffee with steam coming off it. Just leave it there, and just leave it there, and then let play some soft music and let people fall asleep. I think Lex could sell coffee, definitely.
Yeah. You need it. You need at least 2 cups to sit through just the first hour of Lex's show, generally.
Yeah, he's being pushed into our feed, by the way, because I've fallen asleep and woken up to Lex Fridman many times.
Same.
And I do not subscribe to him, nor do I watch him, but there he is in my feed. How does this happen? This is why these accounts blow up.
Mm-hmm.
Do you pay for that access? Is it given to you? Is this some special selection process?
I've woken up at 3:30 in the morning a few times in the living room to Lex Fridman in my headphones. That wasn't what I was watching. And for some, how sometimes when you do that, it'll change to the next video and it's like it wakes you up. But when it changes to Lex Fridman, it puts you in a deeper sleep. So by the time you wake up, you're like 90 minutes into the broadcast and you're like, oh, my algorithm, dang, now this guy's going to keep showing up.
Imagine that you're in your REM stage, could be off on another dimensional plane for all you know, and then there's Lex Fridman giving you instructions and
nightmare
prompts. Like, what? It's terrible. It's dangerous, folks. Do not fall asleep to YouTube. This is the types of things that might happen to you if you fall asleep while listening to YouTube. So we're definitely against that. Now there's another important story I want to. So you guys have probably noticed, the Mahmoud Khalil thing has kind of blown up because they announced that he is eligible for deportation. So, and this is coming at, and I'm going to show you a couple of tweets here. I'm going through Daniel McAdams's, director of the Ron Paul Institute, Daniel McAdams, great guy. We'll hopefully get him back on the show, I hope, very soon to talk about this issue, which is something that we all should be like a really important. So here's Janine Yunus. I don't know if everyone can see this up on screen here. She is a civil rights and civil liberties attorney, okay, from the American Civil Liberties Legal Organization. And so she's there. She fought for the COVID anti-lockdown people. So that's how I know her, through that issue. But it turns out she's half Palestinian. So all the people that she went to defend, all the conservatives, they all turned basically against her as she was saving their ass and taking it to the man. But they all basically went what we call a woke right on the ID politics when it comes to Israel here. So look at this. So she's saying, this is Kristi Noem. She's quote tweeted Kristi Noem, who is the Defense Homeland Security Secretary, Kristi Noem, former governor of South Dakota, very highly populated, relevant state, of course. I'm joking. Mahmoud Khalil hates the United States and what we stand for. So removal should come as welcome news. And this is the one that they keep repeating, guys. It is a privilege to be granted a visa or a green card to live in the United States of America, says Kristi Noem. But when you advocate for violence and glorify and support terrorists that relish the killing of Americans, harass Jews, that privilege should be revoked and you should not be in the country. Good riddance. So all of these things she's accused Mahmoud Khalil of, he has not done. Isn't that interesting? So basically, Jen Eunice is pushing back against this. We'll go back to Daniel's feed, but Jen Eunice is pushing back on this, and I'll bring that back. But you guys, what do you think generally about this story? I think the House Foreign Intelligence Committee also tweeted out, said Shalom Khalil. They made a joke. Basically, he's being kicked. Now, Daniel McAdams pushes back hard on this. And a lot of libertarians are like, what the hell are we doing here? Okay. So all this Mahmoud student mediator did was mediate between the protesters and Columbia University. And he himself is a BDS activist, which is boycott, divestment, sanctions. So he's not pro-Hamas. He's not like advocating for terrorism or supporting Hamas. None of that. But they went for him. Why did they go for this guy? I think because he was Palestinian. He's a refugee, second generation refugee, and he was like a top A student. So, and he worked for the British government in Lebanon, in the embassy. So he seemed like he was going places, and then this happens. So I think, I don't know, but I'll try to retrieve that that feed from Daniel McAdams. But they're all doing victory laps. They're all copying and pasting pretty much the same talking points on this. And Janine Eunice here, she's got the complaint we'll put up on screen. After the immigration judge in Khalil's case ordered him, the government provided the evidence to justify deporting him. This is what they filed. She says, I've been a lawyer for 14 years and a criminal defense lawyer for 9 of those years, and I've never seen anything like this, says Jen Eunice. And she's saying, totally nebulous, vague allegations about involvement in anti-Semitic protests and disruptive, quote, activities. This is like Red Scare type stuff without any specific attributions of any unlawful activity or even, quote, anti-Semitic speech by Khalil himself, which in any event is actually protected under the First Amendment. The U.S. rightly does not have hate speech laws. We don't. So what the Trump administration are doing is making fiat de facto hate speech laws based on arbitrary innuendo. And she goes on, in the U.S. and all civilized societies, if a government is going to punish somebody under the law, it had better provide evidence of specific forms of unlawful activity by the individual that is being targeted. I think that's fair. I think that's a basic low bar expectation for any government. Not only has the government entirely failed to do this, but it's obviously, it's a case, it is predicated on punishing First Amendment protected speech and protest, freedom to assemble, freedom of speech, basic rights in the U.S. And they're saying, here's the actual evidence here. The information provided regarding participation by Khalil in, quote, anti-Semitic protests, and it goes on here, America First policy directive of the Secretary of State, This is just completely, it's like a political hatchet job, basically. There's nothing in here. There's no unlawful activity. So this guy is being painted as a terrorist supporter, a terrorist sympathizer. Daniel McAdams says no to Kristi Noem. He hates this administration's Middle East policy, says Daniel McAdams, director of the Ron Paul Institute. There is a difference, and conservatives used to understand that, says Daniel McAdams. Now they've gone full Stalin, arresting and jailing anyone who does not support their foreign policy. You can see where this is headed. Again, he's quote tweeted Kristi Noem. There's Kristi Noem saying we all need a real ID before we can fly in America. She's looking great. Great hair. This is not a Pantene shampoo ad. That is the DHS secretary. So totally qualified as usual. And so, again, both Democrats and conservatives should be up in arms. So here's Daniel McAdams again, going down Daniel's Twitter feed. He's basically saying this is a straw man argument to justify an attack on the Constitution. The U.S. State Department, Rubio, saying U.S. visas are a privilege rather than a right, reserved for those who make the U.S. better, not to seek to destroy it from the inside. Well, this guy has not said anything about the United States itself. He is criticizing a foreign government's actions and policies, Israel, and supporting U.S. military support for those activities, which are deemed to be war crimes by the international courts of justice. I think legitimate argument. Yeah, I think so. But so, and now they're saying, guys, and this is where we got to get concerned. Okay, these same people are saying that free speech. I only need to go no further than Mike Waltz here. This is Trump's national security director. I don't know if he deleted this tweet or not, but let's take a look at this. I don't know if I can get to the original on this. Okay, yeah, can you guys see this? That's Mike Waltz. And he's saying, being a guest in our country is not, our country is a privilege, not a right. If you promote terrorism and anti-Semitism, there will be consequences. So again, they're doing a victory lap that the judges ruled. There's still an appeal, by the way, federal appeal on this. So we'll see if he actually gets deported. But my answer to this here, which I haven't quite ratioed Mike Waltz, but not bad for a comment, 16,000 views. And basically I said, no, you're wrong. I said the First Amendment of our Constitution is not a privilege. It is an inalienable right, which fully covers political speech and criticism of the policies and actions of both the U.S. and foreign governments, including Israel. Read your Constitution, Mike Waltz. It explicitly restrains the government from denying those rights to anyone inside U.S. jurisdiction, especially legal residents like Mahmoud Khalil. And I don't want to get into the weeds on this, guys, and I'll throw it back to you for discussion, but my position on this is that if you're cheerleading a legal green card holder getting booted from the country for basically criticizing a foreign government, and you think that's fair, and that he doesn't have any rights just because he's not a passport holder in the United States, do you really think that by green lighting this, that is not going to come back and restrict your rights of free speech? Because that's what I see coming very, very quickly here, guys. Your thoughts?
It goes to the whole anti-Semitism thing. This is what we've all been worried about. We've been warning about. We've been saying it. This is going to open the door. It's too broad of there's no set definition. Well, there is now a changing definition of what's considered anti-Semitism. And now with this push to make it illegal, then that is a crime. So simply being because they, proverbial air quotes, they say you're anti-Semitic, now you're a criminal, and criminals don't have rights in America. So they're doing this whole slippery slope, by tagging, and they're just tagging the label of anti-Semitism to the person's actions, and then somebody like Kristi Noem, who border Barbie, isn't that what some of the people call her? She's a disgusting person. I've been listening to her speak recently, and I'm just like vomiting all over the place. I thought I wasn't going to make it today. I was actually listening to her speak today about her real ID and everything. What a joke. So isn't this also a tacit admission to suggest that Israel has so much sway and control and really is the secret? Is this the United States of America anymore, or is this just an extension by proxy of Israel? Because if what this person is doing it's not against the United States, as they're suggesting, it's really technically against another country, in this case, Israel. Why is the United States getting so uppity up about it unless this country is so deeply embedded and controlled by that said country? I mean, it just seems like, again, a tacit admission that, yet again, a foreign power has way too much control over our country, and that should be the full stop. Everyone should be, like, scratching their heads over how did this happen, right? But yeah, it's all hinged upon what's considered anti-Semitic, and that's illegal. And now, as we've been discussing, you're anti-Semitic if you're simply not anti-Semitic. So it's going to get very dangerous real soon. So you could get deported just because you didn't protest against the protest, right?
Yeah, this is George Orwell level stuff. So this quote here is normally attributed to Voltaire, but did a little bit of research and found out it's actually an American. Evelyn Beatrice Hall, who is a political writer from the early 20th century. And she says, I do not agree with what you have to say, but I'll defend to the death your right to say it. That is basically the essence of the U.S., the spirit of the U.S. Constitution. And when you take an oath, if you're the president or you're Mike Waltz, you take an oath to protect and defend the U.S. Constitution from all enemies, foreign and domestic. There's nothing in that oath that says, I will protect and defend the U.S. government. It's defend the Constitution. That's same with law enforcement, same with soldiers. Okay. So anybody in the U.S. government that is attacking the First Amendment so directly and then deporting people and threatening everybody else for a foreign lobby, I kind of chalk that up as a potential enemy, a domestic enemy of the Constitution. So if I'm swearing an oath, that means I probably have to remove these people from office, quite frankly, by hook or crook. Peacefully, of course. Peacefully. So, but guys, like, what else? How else do you have to read this? There's no loophole here for a debate. I mean, that's why I know a lot of conservatives and rhinos hate the Constitution, and we know the radical left hate the Constitution. Why? Because it's actually pretty simple. It's all delineated there. Protect the rights of the citizens. Anything outside of that, we can litigate. It's not difficult, but this is why a lot of political operatives do not like it. And this is why they don't like America, and they don't like the American system when it's done fairly and with the Constitution at the center of all the interpretations of law. And so this is where the real argument is still. This is the same battleground we're facing in America. Hesher, Ruckus, your thoughts on this?
Well, yeah, I agree with Ruckus. This is, Khalil is just a kind of a goalpost in this process, and I think that this back and forth that you're highlighting shows exactly what I was saying earlier. And both sides of the identity politic here, the mainstream identity politic, have seeded this for a long time. Like we saw in the Biden administration after October 7, there was always this sort of like, well, we're kind of on the side of peace. We're kind of on the side of the Palestinians. We're not going to condemn Israel at all, right? And that was what the conservative pundits used to say, oh, that's the moment right there where they said, oh, if you're on the left or if you support Palestinians and you want peace in the region and you want the ethnic cleansing to stop, then ipso facto, you are a leftist, which is one of the things that we get hit with a lot, which is, patently just a ridiculous argument for anyone who knows our overall worldviews. So it's like this whole road was set up. It's just like COVID, it's like the thing happened. Everybody was confused for a certain amount of time. Then once all the ducks and money pots were in a row, it became okay for it to be politicized. And all of a sudden conservatives came out of their little hidey holes and took their ritual muzzles of shame off and said, I like freedom. I don't like this COVID stuff. What about that lab leak? And all of a sudden it became boom. And it was like a mainstream sort of conservative back and forth there. And then it became a CIA talking point that it's a lab leak instead of, an oopsie or something like that. And that the government lied to you, which is interesting. Why would the CIA want you to think that the government lied to you and all that and start all this division? Well, this is it right here. Now this goes back to what I was saying about the Overton window too. They want people having these conversations. They want the conservative wing bifurcated. They want to take people from the conservative wing and have establishment conservatives call them liberals. You're a crypto liberal. You support terror and Hamas. And all the while during that Biden administration, they were doing massive censorship. And now we're looking at the other side of the massive censorship, because this is the message here from Trump, the Trump administration, his entire cabinet, and all the media that are full on cheerleaders of him that do not criticize him is, hey, we are the U.S., this administration, we are political Zionists, and if you don't get on board, we're going to cast you out into the leftist crowd. So have fun over there. Those of you that don't like, men and women's sports and all that other stuff, good luck
Yeah.
on that team, because you're not going to be on our team. And oh, by the way, we're going to arrest whoever we want. We don't need good documentation on what we're doing. We don't need to back that up whatsoever. And while we're at it, let's talk about taking Candace Owens, Tucker Carlson, and heck, maybe now even Joe Rogan off of the cool people list. They're all anti-Semitic racists all of a sudden. And all we have to offer you are these talking points, the same freaking talking points that that Douglas Murray was using and all the usual cast of characters use. So I think this is a giant, somehow long-term laid out plan by both sides to do cultural engineering here in the United States to disrupt both sides, honest anti-war people on both sides, and put them in camps where they're ineffective and scared that they may lose their constitutional rights. Like ZP Zap in our, I believe he's in our Rumble chat, said, Christie said, we can't hide behind the First Amendment. Well, okay. He goes on to say, she's hiding behind the phony anti-Semitism trope. And he goes on to say, they'll start coming after anyone on federal benefits of any sort for this crap. And it goes back to what Ruckus was saying. What is the definition of anti-Semitism? Well, now it's just a identity politic talking point. And the Trump administration and those that work their marketing and, these companies like Influenceable, which we talked about last time.
Yep.
They're the ones delivering these talking points, and they're the ones pushing this. So it's like, Kristi Noem literally standing there fakely behind the Second Amendment too, holding her rifle, doesn't even know how to wear a plate carrier, doesn't know how to hold a rifle, flagging the guy next to her. And she's, like Tulsi, supposed to come off as some cool, kind of good looking, younger politician who's got the 2A thing going on.
Got the baseball hat, and the hair, all the. It's like, come on, seriously,
what a joke! Like literally grifting and standing on Second Amendment while ripping on First Amendment. It's like, what the hell?
Exactly. That's perfect. Yeah, what standing on Second Amendment but while ripping on First Amendment. I'm sorry, does not compute. Does not compute.
Because the Second Amendment is the one meant to protect the first one. That's why they're 1 and 2.
Yep. And then
she thinks they're used to take care of her dog problem.
Oh, the puppies. Yeah, I'm gonna go out and kill me some puppies, said Kristi Noem. Yeah, lovely lady. Anyway, she looks great, and that's all that matters. She looks great on TV. She's gonna be great. It's gonna be the greatest. This is why we like our listeners at ACR and 21 Wire here. TG Wilson pointing out here that Evelyn Beatrice Hall wrote that in 1906 under the pseudonym of S.G. Talentire, based on her reading of Voltaire. So there was a summation of Voltaire that's been attributed on the mem quotes that you see on the internet. It's been attributed to Voltaire, wrongly attributed. Voltaire kind of inferred that, and she did a contextual analysis of Voltaire. And actually, there's another one from T.G. Wilson. Voltaire actually wrote in translation. The actual translation here, we'll read this on screen, is, we have a natural right to make use of our pens as our tongue at our peril, risk, and hazard, said Voltaire, the great French philosopher. And we have a lot of time for some of these great French philosophers. They're very much in line with early American political philosophy as well. That's why Benjamin Franklin, Thomas Paine, and all of those guys spent so much time in France before the birth of the United States and the independence movement there. So the British version is, I do not agree with what you have to say, so the anti-terrorist squad are coming. So it's like, they're coming over. So yeah, exactly. Dawn Raid, Facebook posts. That's what the British are up to here.
I saw an old man who could barely hear. He's going deaf, getting harassed by police officers, the Billies, the old Bill, right? For the fact that he told somebody to speak English. How dare he?
Yeah, I like this one. Again, clever comment from our listeners here, our viewers. As per Douglas Murray logic, Wickoff is not qualified to be in any negotiations with anyone, only real estate deals, according to Murray logic. I think we should actually apply Murray logic to the government, not to us, not to the punditry, for heaven's sake, but to the government. I think that experience, qualifications, I think that's good, isn't it, in government, to have more experienced, more qualified people instead of what Trump has. What do we got? Who's defense secretary? Is he a 5-star general? Who's our DOD head of the DOD? Who's in charge of the $1 trillion budget?
Hegseth, the Fox guy?
Yeah, that guy.
No. I'm sitting here looking at a headline from this week. Trump administration proposes historic $1 trillion defense budget to bolster national security. We've been talking about the DoD budget here as long as we've been friends, you guys, and it's been a long time. And we watched it go from, I think, 750 billion up to 846 billion. So they're cranking it up this year. I don't know what Doge has to say about this. I know they've supposedly released more money than the 2 point, whatever billions this is to bring that up to a trillion here, but. Clearly you can see where this is headed. Trump's also signed off on a new fighter jet platform, which blows my mind because it's like, on the one hand, yeah, we need them. We don't have anything that could compete with a Sukhoi, a top end Sukhoi. There's no way the F-35 ain't going to do it. I mean, it's pretty neat after, being a decade over budget and a decade behind schedule. It's cool jet and all, but sorry, you're probably not going to win against a Sukhoi. So they're building a new jet program. He's put a new a boat program in, I think, and some of that stuff was needed. Our military was actually really wrecked. And one thing I found interesting that I discovered in the last couple of weeks of reporting over at the Pulse is that our military. I might have learned this on your website. Actually, it was a great report on 21 Wire about how the U.S. military no longer has the capability to do an amphibious landing, which is exactly what they would need to do if they really wanted to go to war and win and decimate in Yemen. But they can't even do that. We know our Marines and Navy no longer have the ability to load up the tanks and the artillery and a platoon of people and land them on a beach, which is the only way they're going to get through into Yemen. And we don't even have that capability. So, but on the other hand, it's like, why is $986 billion not enough to do that in the first place? It doesn't even make sense. It just goes to show what a insane socialist grift our DoD budget is. That is a completely socialist paradigm to have $1 trillion budget for
corporate socialism. Corporate socialism.
It's insane. And I have a pretty good idea that, a lot of the missing money is just black holed out of that, just the same way it is the Intel community.
Oh yeah, but Doge is going to fix all that. What do you think? Are they going to get a look in on the Pentagon? Do you really think so? I don't know. Don't know about that one. Here we go. Another comment. So we can all agree that U.S. is ZOG. Have you guys seen this acronym ZOG?
Yeah.
It's very popular, Zionist occupied government. So I'm going to put a very controversial comment, and we will analyze it from an objective point of view. And it's from T.G. Wilson. Again, extremely controversial to some people, maybe not to others, but here it is. Criticizing Israeli leadership is not anti-Semitic. Since they are Ashkenazi Jews from Europe, he's talking about the Israeli leadership, like Netanyahu's Polish. If it's anything, it's anti-European settler. So he's being very specific and technical in the point he's making there from an argumentative sort of master debater point of view. But obviously that statement would be deemed as anti-Semitic.
Correct. That's the problem.
Does it make it make sense? Somebody,
it's a paradox. Please. It is literally a paradox, and they are over a very short period of time. They have between Kanye showing up with the net and the Yahoo, and now they have set up a new dialectic. Political dialectics are one of the most onerous things that we get put on us when they're doing cultural manipulation and build up to war. So they're fracturing it's more than just a bifurcation. We've been fractured already over a whole bunch of things, but this is a big one. And in their eyes, it's the big one. because you have just inserted a dialectic right in the middle of both sides. You know, this affects people on the left too, I'm sure. I don't hang with many of them, but I know they have their thoughts on this, and they don't all agree on Israel-Palestine either, which is funny because part of the dialectic is if you're anti-political Zionism, you're a leftist. But there's people on both sides that get this, you know, and all of us are at risk, and both of our parties are at risk, you know, and that's the chaos that's going to keep us all busy while they rearrange the chessboard here. And Trump uses those tactics you were talking about in your opening monologue, where it's like ultimate leverage. This is how to philosophize about geopolitics with a hammer, a BFH, a big hammer. And that's what's being wielded right now. And for every big hammer leverage thing that this administration is doing, there's something else going on underneath it, but there's a huge, like, we're winning, like, narrative that goes along with it. It's brilliantly crafted. I'll give them that. For those that are brainwashed and haven't unscrewed their, you know, identity politics from propaganda, it's a brilliant strategy, you know, but it's not America first. That's for sure. That is for dang sure. And it's the kind of thing that's going to splinter a lot of people that would normally have been acting like people in the 21st century right now, who could say, yeah, you know what, maybe if we just did Patrick's idea, we wouldn't have these problems. If we could just denuclearize the whole region, maybe some of this could help, you know. And we have a line to Russia now. We have a line to Iran now. Maybe we could, you know, like, hey guys, if we send the inspectors over to Israel, we catalog what's there, and we make a deal on that, will you sign to not send hypersonic missiles over here? You know what I mean? Like, there's some good actual negotiating that could happen here. But
do some deals, yeah.
Yeah, but you know, we know who's in command. If it's Zog, they're going to be deaf to these cries. And those of us that are actually 21st century human beings who want to see an end to world wars and, you know, nation shaping and imperialism, I think most of us sandwich eaters could agree on that. If we could just get everybody down to that part, $20 tuna sandwich eaters, I mean, you know, but no, we're not. That's not the direction we're seeing here. We're seeing we're going to split you guys into different groups. We're going to monitor everything. That's the other thing about this Overton window move and the ability to have this discussion on big platforms. They're monitoring all this. So if this does come to a policy point where we do get a very, like, you know, solid new definition of anti-Semitism, they've got everybody on lists. They've got everybody's X account to go through. It's, you know, not Peter Thiel, but you know, the Palantir guy. I guess that is Peter.
Alex Karp.
Yeah. He's over there running all this stuff through the Palantir machine. They've got everybody in these categories already. So, you know, where does it go from here?
Well, here's another, the Dark Commission. Ruckus, you'll like this because there's a bit of wordsmithing going on here. The Dark Commission says, I wonder if those shouting, quote, anti-Semitism, unquote, know that it's a group of related languages and not a race or people. It would be like calling an anti-Frankist somebody because I dislike the French language. So he's making the point that Semitic languages from the region, I think it is attached to Semitic languages from the region, like Arabic, and so forth, Aramaic, and maybe Hebrew's in there. I'm not sure. So he's making a technical point there. But I mean,
it kind of makes sense because I lean towards this argument that there's no such thing as a race of people, and what separates the different groups are things like what he's pointing out, like your shared culture, a shared belief system, a shared language, and writing system. So because we're all part of the human race, you trace your ancestry back far enough. It doesn't matter if you believe in the Bible as creation or Darwin's evolution, which is a freaking joke. But no matter how you take it all the way back, like, we're all related. We're all human beings. Why can't we all just get along? I don't know. Maybe because we don't speak the same language, apparently. So maybe there is something to this anti-Semitism thing, but it's not geared towards a race of people. So I don't know. I'm glad to know that because I was considering learning Hebrew, but I do not want to be a victim of all this rank anti-Semitism that the world is moving towards. Thanks to the likes of Joe Rogan and Candace Owens. It's getting
Oh,
dangerous for Hebrew speakers these days.
yeah, dangerous for Douglas Murray as well. So here's a comment here. U.S. Navy vet says Mahmoud Khalil, works for British intelligence. Max Blumenthal exposed this Khalil dude. That's not true. I'm going to have to correct the record, folks. Not true. There is no evidence that Mahmoud Khalil was working for British intelligence. He worked in the British embassy for Syria, which was relocated in Beirut, Lebanon, because the U.S. and the British were kicked out of Syria in 2012, or they were asked to leave or left because they knew that the situation wasn't very friendly for them anymore. So he was hired as I think a 28-year-old working for the British embassy for Syria in Beirut, and he was put in charge of something called the Chevening Scholarship. It's a bit like USAID, where they look for people who have promising careers in politics or academia, and the government sponsors them. Why do they do that? Why do they recruit people and then give them money? To get them on their side politically. This is how the U.S. works with the USAID. It's how the British work with the British Council and the Chevening Scholarship. So this guy was Mahmoud Khalil was a top student, okay? And it's not unusual to find Palestinians working in NGOs in Lebanon, in North Africa, in Barcelona, and in New York, okay? They're everywhere. If you've been around the world, and it's not unusual to find high performing Palestinian top students, PhD students. They're all over the world. Okay, they just happen to be high performing, high excelling, great in academics. Palestine had the highest literacy rate in the world. And so what did Israel and the U.S. do? Destroy all the schools, blow up all the universities, bombed every library, and every single book and PhD paper is gone in the last year and a half. So there is no evidence that Khalil was a British intelligence agent. Okay. He was working there. And yes, the U.S. was running regime change operations at that time for Syria, Operation Timber Sycamore, but there's no evidence that he was involved in that. And I can tell you, having spoken to Craig Murray and other people in the British diplomatic corps, okay, Peter Ford and others, that British intelligence doesn't even read in the foreign secretary on stuff because they don't want to fill their head with any dangerous facts. So they sometimes opt not even to brief them. That's how insular the spook community is. Okay. Not everybody that works for the government is a spy. Okay. So, and even if it was true, and again, this is my argument I made a month ago, even if that were true, and he was, the case is a landmark First Amendment precedent case. Must defend the Constitution at all costs. All Americans should prioritize that, should recognize the importance of that. Nobody's going to take my focus off the issue. I don't care what he is, or I don't think there's any evidence that he was a spy. This was an internet talking point that unfortunately I don't even think Max Blumenthal, I think they put him in the frame with the British government in the Middle East, but a lot of people work for NGOs and work for embassies. It doesn't necessarily mean they're a spy or that they're nefarious. Okay. So look at his family background, Yarmouk refugee camp in Damascus. I've been there. It's a historic place. Unfortunately, got overran by ISIS. Yeah. Got overran by ISIS and they blew the place up and a lot of people died. And that was the end of that Palestinian resistance pocket. Yeah. That's kind of how it goes with ISIS. So
I appreciate and understand the skepticism that in a media environment where we're lied to so much and we have uncovered so many intelligence ops, FBI ops, all this stuff. You have to have that kind of skepticism, but you bump up against the difficult, what you know versus what you don't know. And, you And unfortunately, you're forced to use Occam's razor so many times when you're this deep in the weeds of identity politics. So it's like, I get it. I appreciate the skepticism, and I've been in this pickle before myself, and I'll be in it again. And sometimes I just have to zoom myself back out and say, okay, people like us are really interested in the very actual mechanics. We are really want to understand the actual mechanics, but we don't get the emails, we don't get the signal chats, we don't, we have to suss out if you're dealing with an influencer who's being paid, literally paid a salary and paid per post to deliver talking points, right? So everything feels fake and gay, and there's a reason for that. It's supposed to. And it just really puts everybody in a pickle where it's like, okay, how far do I go in taking this to Occam's razor? But the fact of the matter is, when you zoom out, it's like, we can just strip that aside. Even if he was intelligence, like, the narrative that's being spun around him is what is important, and the outcome is what is important. Even if it was fake, it almost doesn't matter. And this, I hate to say it, but after so many years of research and so many hundreds of thousands of hours of talking about it, daily shooter programs kind of the same. I see an event, I know it's dirty, and I want to understand the mechanics of it. I want to know if it was a known wolf. I want to know if there are anomalies. I want to know if there's an agenda. I want to know if there's going to be a open kimono sort of, police report, or is it going to be an FBI redacted, nothing burger that you have access to. I could reference the Covenant school shooting as a perfect example. Look how many months they took to give us their final report. Look how bogus that final report is. It didn't have anything to do with her psychology, her pharmacology, her mental health, and those things were all huge. If you go to ablechild.com.org or .com, I think it's .org maybe. Sheila over there at AbleChild has done some great work on this and exposed so many things that were not in that report that are factors. So it's like you end up down in the weeds like that. But when you zoom out, it's like, well, there's going to be legislation based on this. There's going to be political activity in Tennessee, in city council, and in the state representative house, and things are changing, and the narrative remains. Even though things have come to light that should change the narrative remains the same. So it's like, even if it's fake, even if it's organic, a narrative is wrapped around it, and then policy and legislation that the people have no voice in, and no context with which to have a decision. Even if they did have a voice, it's the policy. It's like when they say, is the economy stupid? It's the policy stupid. I mean, and I appreciate the deep research, but it's like, that's really the big outcome here.
The gun, like a daily shooter, dodgy mass shooting event, and the focus is going to be on the gun regulation and gun legislation. So you can't take your eye off the ball on that, and everybody does. And then if they discredit somebody involved in the scenario, then everyone says, "Oh, it's all fake," and they completely let their guard down and not look at the actual what's going on there, which has a legal outcome that's going to affect the rights of everybody. And it's the same thing. The one I loved was, Julian Assange is a CIA plant. It's all fake. He's not really in prison. It's all this and that. And so, do you realize what's, the basic freedom of the press, basic U.S. jurisdiction to reach out and do extraordinary rendition of a publisher or a journalist? That's a big legal precedent. And so that's coming right to the center of the U.S. heart of the security state. So even if it were true, and there's no evidence that it is or was, how does that materially change the issue at play? Because I'm a journalist, and we're all publishers and journalists. So we actually have skin in the game on this issue. So we can't take our eyes off the issue. And so it's, again, the same with what's the other story we were mentioning as well. It's okay, like on this Mahmoud Khalil story as well. Someone put a comment on the bottom here, which is smart. They said, even if Khalil isn't deported, this would definitely make other visa holders think twice before criticizing Israel. Not just visa holders, U.S. citizens. Students on campuses that are U.S. citizens are now not protesting. It's already had the effect. So people don't lose focus of the issue. just because people are speculating about somebody's affiliations, linked to, associated with, worked for. Okay, it's not conclusive, and it doesn't really change the material issue at play. Same with, like Hesher said, breaking down some of these false flags and mass shootings. Don't get distracted by the sizzle of whatever the story is or the weirdness. Look at what does the government want out of it? They want a declaration of war. They want gun regulation. They want, you name it. That's what matters. That is the outcome. That's what matters. Here's Nina here. She says about Voltaire, he was imprisoned twice in France at the Bastille, both times, for his scathing, caustic criticism of the French court system at the time. He was then exiled to England, where he fell in love with English society and its liberalism. He wrote a famous work called Letters of Philosophy, or Letters Concerning the English Nation, 1734. Voltaire's sharp wit is as prescient today as it ever was. Absolutely agree 100%. Fled his country because he was making too much trouble, like Socrates, picking fights and debates with the man. And the man said, "We've had enough of you. And off to England you go. We don't want you in our business and our hair anymore." So he's an icon in France among many French intellectuals that have
They
given
gave
us
Socrates
so much.
that option too, by the way. A lot of people forget that they said, "Hey, you can exile yourself, or we got to put you to death." And he's like, "Okay, death it is."
Oh, he did get the option.
Yeah. No, he
Okay.
chose to take the poison and all that. Yeah. Wild, huh?
Drink the hemlock. Socrates was an interesting cat. He was an interesting cat. He was very in vogue in the elites of society. They would invite him to parties, all the elites, the top royals, and They, as a kind of party trick, that, oh, Socrates is coming, and everybody got excited. And then people would try to pick fights with him and say, "So Socrates," and they would use Socrates to air political grievances among the rivals. They would use Socrates to kind of spark the debate. And when they wanted to, so he was a kind of central figure used by elites as a sounding board, but also as a real kind of figure of controversy. And in the end, he pissed everybody off. In the end, he had pissed everybody off because he basically held a mirror up to the whole of society, right, left, top, bottom, everybody. And he had no friends by the end because he was telling too much truth. And they couldn't burn him at the stake, although that was an option at a time. And then, as Ruckus said, he was just given the option to self-deport.
Do you remember what his charges were? If I'm not mistaken, I'm just going off of memory because I studied him many years back in the day. I'm pretty sure it was for corrupting the minds of the youth, and I might be dead on about that, but I think that's why they chose to either exile him or put him to death, because he was corrupting the minds of the youth. And here we are with social media and all this crap.
That's it. Well, no, not much has changed in 2,500 years, unfortunately.
Just the speed at which you can corrupt youth.
Yes, very true. Very true. So there's a few more comments we'll bring on here. Right. Jackson Hinkle. People are talking about Hinkle. He's an interesting character. We won't get into Jackson today. But let me see. Oh, on the anti-Semitism talk, we'll probably put this one to rest. But Eman Sudama says the way to use the term anti-Semitic, they use it to shut down any criticism of Israel, is to appeal to motive fallacy anyway. Someone's motives for saying something can't make it false. I see what they're saying there. So they're trying to frame it as you have some kind of evil motive. Because it's a circular argument. Because you're anti-Semitic, you're evil, you have evil motives, malintent, therefore. But can you prove what I said is anti-Semitic? No, but because you said it, it's evil. And he's just going this tautological merry-go-round, as they say. So yeah, this subject has to be debated because policy is being formed around this. This is kind of an important debate. This destroyed British politics, folks. They destroyed the Labour Party with this one, put Jeremy Corbyn out, the leader. They got rid of him on this on a fake anti-Semitism scandal. And, you know, whether you vote Labor or Conservative is neither here nor there, you know, but we should have open debate and discussion on these things here. So we'll see what else we've got, and we'll probably wrap it up. Oh, this is a controversial comment here. Socrates would have gone to Diddy's parties if he were alive. That takes the biscuit. That is the number one awesome comment. Awesome comment. We really, really like that one. That's good. Socrates would have gone to
I
Diddy's
feel
parties.
an urge to ask Grok to draw a picture of Socrates attending a Diddy party just for fun.
Wearing the white toga would have been perfect. The white parties.
Was Benjamin Franklin our Socrates? Because he was wandering around in the tunnels in France at the Hellfire Club quite a bit, I hear. That's kind of like a Diddy party, right?
Was there a Hellfire Club in France?
Yeah.
There was? Okay.
It might have been in London. It may have been in London, actually.
Might have been London. I think it was London. But
Yeah.
then they opened a branch up in America, apparently, after that. So that's not...
The ones in France were far more like the Diddy parties, Hesher.
I believe that. They know how to party.
Rupert Fellows gets the award for top comment of the week by far. I don't think anybody can beat that. That is pretty based.
Yeah.
So Zach says Socrates' students tried to convince him to leave and he forced them to argue why he should leave instead of accepting his punishment, which was an apology by Plato. So it's in that, the apology by Plato. Okay, so that's interesting. That is a typical Socrates move, to make things just a little more difficult for himself by having yet another debate. So Ruckus, I don't know how much you studied Socrates, but there was, and my philosophy teacher loved Plato's Republic. This was the foundation of everything. And the parable of the cave was my sort of North Star for propaganda. Just, figuring out deconstructing propaganda. But there was this, my teacher said, there is no actual, other than anecdotal evidence from Plato himself, that they don't know if Socrates was the pen name of Plato or vice versa. If there was not one and the same person, or that Aristotle made up both of them and wrote the Republic. Have you heard any of that?
Yeah, they do this all the time. They say similar stuff about Shakespeare. In fact, I thought they had said that wasn't Shakespeare secretly Voltaire, right? We were
or
talking
Philip
about Voltaire.
Marlowe, the playwright,
Yeah,
or
all these-
Voltaire. Yeah,
Why they do
Voltaire,
this?
Yeah.
I don't understand. I just take it at face value because similar to this argument about whether the gentleman who's facing possible deportation for his anti-Semitic ways might possibly be British intelligence. So what? It doesn't matter. It doesn't change what these people taught and the schools of thinking that were born out of it. Doesn't change what Plato wrote, whether it was a real person or not. The alien people like to make this argument about Atlantis. Like, well, Atlantis was an allegory, by the way. I think that's what the allegory of the cave, not a parable. But they suggest these writings are symbolic, but it doesn't change the importance of it. So I don't know. I believe he was real, and I believe Plato was his student, and he wrote about him. And if he hadn't, then we would not know these things. And again, if he was fake, so what? We all benefited from it either way, yeah.
Causing them to doubt the gods and hence the state. That's a capital crime back then. So, yeah, okay, another one of Socrates' misanthropic deeds.
He was Zeus hesitant.
Yes, he was. Yeah, he was iffy on Zeus. Okay, last point, guys, and I want to get your take on this because this is a big story. And it's come up in the comment threads here. Okay, the State Department has an obligation to bring Garcia back from El Salvador. So they've deported this guy that they admit is innocent, but they say it's not our responsibility to take him out of this gulag prison with all these hardcore gangbangers in El Salvador. So I guess this guy was a hairdresser from Washington, D.C. or something. And
I'm glad you guys brought this up. This one has been bothering me. Like, this dude literally, case of mistaken identity. We made a mistake. And the reporting that I had seen, Patrick, from the mainstream was, and I'm quoting, that it would be impossible for us to get him back. And I'm thinking, Yo, it's 2025. I've seen like drones. We got space weapon. We got things. We got Chat GPT. We got Grok. I mean, you're telling me we can't get this guy back that we accidentally deported? That's a bunch of baloney. So I think that they need to make every effort to get this person back and make this right. This was crazy. Yep. Total mistaken identity. And now he's gone. Oh, sorry. My bad. We ruined your life and your family's life, and we can't get you back. We would love to, but we can't. We can do all the other things, like start wars and shit, but we can't get this guy back. That's cool.
If they just denied it and said that no, he's a criminal, then at least you could say that they're sticking by their position. But they've caved on their position, but they won't do anything to rectify it. I honestly, imagine being in that position. That's really bad.
It's an impossible position. And, we use the term gulag properly many times, I think, as reference to J6 people. But now, I guess the left, quote unquote, they have their own J6, but it's sort of a across the country sort of, ICE raid sort of thing. And we just have to trust that the government is adjudicating all these properly. But why would we trust that the government's adjudicating all these properly? They didn't adjudicate the pro-life people cases. They didn't adjudicate the IRS people's cases. They did not adjudicate the J6ers cases, kangaroo courts, activist judges, activist lawyers, big federal names, big federal agendas, shady FBI talking points, and pleading the fifth on important things that would exonerate so many people, stifling evidence, disallowing discovery, disallowing any public knowledge of what's going on inside those prisons. Well, how is that any different from El Salvador? Well, in El Salvador, it's even worse. When you're in the gulag there, as our friend Basil told us after we were talking on the back line, he said, in this prison, there's a documentary on it. You can see a couple on YouTube. No visits, no books, no outdoors, no TV, no radio. Get this, no showers or baths, no sport, no education, no meat to eat, nothing. And I'm guessing no communications to the outside world either. So this is a serious thing. I mean, I'm down with deporting criminals that are here illegally. That's fantastic, but you should at least be able to show what crimes they've committed. There should be records of those, and that should not be something that we're asking to see, but unfortunately we know we can't trust the legal system. The Trump administration can't even trust the legal system. It's a mess. The Dems would like to pack the Supreme Court. And, they may just do that if they get into power again. So it's really going to be interesting to see how much of this like activist lawyer, DA, Secretary of State, activism will be allowed, because our judicial branch is pretty much acting outside the Constitution when the political class demands it.
And good comment here, guys. Look at this. I mean, shows you the IQ we have on our audience at HCR.
Yes.
Is very high. The extraordinary addition of these men to El Salvador has a Bush Cheney feel to it. Yeah, it does actually. And so, and not to be outdone, here's the issue, guys. I'd rather a guilty person go free than an innocent person be in prison. That is a basic principle that we've all been raised with, right? And this no longer applies in Trump world and the new USA. And we got to get back to some of the original principles that most Americans recognized and held dear, and would all get behind, whatever party they belong to. That's the America that I sort of remember growing up, but I just don't see it anymore. And when somebody in the comment threads is saying something that is a real devastating slap to our government right now, and it's just so glaringly obvious, and my parents and grandparents didn't need to be told this. They knew it, and they probably taught that in school time and time again. It's part of their education civics curriculum, basic jurisprudence, constitutional law. That's why we have these systems. They're not there for, just for jollies.
And look how many guilty people are running around free after, all their restorative justice and rollbacks and race-based policies and stuff that's just laws that are just not being looked at if a person is from a certain class, a certain color, a certain location. That, like, there was a dude down here in Austin, young African American guy in his 20s, who kicked his pregnant girlfriend in the stomach, caused her to lose her baby, and DA Garza just let this guy walk. No problem. You can just walk. I mean, that's a, trying not to use a pejorative here. That is a person, that is an individual who needs to go into the legal system. I know it's broken. I know the prison system's broken, but I'm sorry, you're going to do something like that, you need to pay a price. But that's just one example of hundreds of thousands of criminals in this country who have literally been just let out, and no bail, no charges, or highly reduced charges. So it's like, they're going around and rounding up people that don't need to be rounded up. What about all these people that have been let out by the activist judges and DAs? Like, we have murderers, rapists, all kind of predators, way more predators walking around in this country than we did before. So cool, Trump, you want to get rid of the foreign predators that are here illegally? That's great, but you got to do it properly. You can't just.
But even if the government makes a mistake, and then they make an effort to fix it, this is good. This is good, and it gives you a lot of hope and faith in the state. And you think, actually, there's reasonable people there. If they make a mistake, they're going to fix it. That's good for everybody. And that's kind of what I want to see from government, that's saying, yeah, we effed up, but we're going to fix it. And whatever, I don't care what happens after that. Just to know that they're capable of that is a huge relief in this police state that we live in. That's yeah.
Do we not have a U.S. embassy over there in that country? And is our U.S. embassy doing its duty? Like, okay, we're going to do this in mass. There's going to be some mistakes. Well, someone from the U.S. embassy should be visiting that prison every freaking day and, saying, okay, who are you? Make sure I know who you are. These are the charges that we did this to you on. And if they messed up, that, that ambassador or whoever that is should work to rectify it. If you're going to do the big shotgun spread like this and say, okay, we're going to make some mistakes, like, you got to own up to those mistakes, and you got to have a system in place so that those people can redress their grievance. You can't just drop them in a gulag in a foreign country and say, well, there's nothing we can do from here. Sorry. It's like, what do you mean? We don't have an embassy there? Just F right off with that.
Yeah, and they say, "Oh, he doesn't have rights." No, I don't think so. If he's in the U.S. illegally, not illegally, but legally, he definitely has rights. Even if he was in illegally, that is somehow unlawful and a bad precedent to have a deportation like that. It's definitely not a good thing. It just kind of shows inefficiency, and also it means that they're covering stuff up. And I don't want governments getting in the habit of covering little things up, because let's say there's a false flag plot from, let me think, a foreign government on U.S. soil, and the CIA or the FBI have all the information on it, but it's kind of being covered up because it's like, oh, we made a mistake. Oh, we didn't catch that one. Oh, that one got away. Oh, those guys actually didn't do it. We know who did it. And so we lost so much faith in the state through 9/11 and all of these farragos over the years. And just stuff like this is just indicative of the worst aspects of government. And it doesn't inspire me with a lot of confidence, to be quite frank.
Remember when they came out and apologized that the shots were actually not safe and effective? Oh, wait, we're still waiting for that.
Right. So here we go. Oh, this is a good point. It's going to absolutely destroy tourism to the U.S. This is true, actually. Tourism is way down as a result of this kind of Marco Rubio power State Department positioning and stuff. You can't have any opinions. They're now using an Israeli AI company to scan U.S. social media accounts, people applying for visas to the U.S. And they're looking for, quote, anti-Semitic posts on social media. And they will deny, listen, we all know we have friends who we'd love to visit, who we'd love to host. They're not racist, but they might be critical of Israel, so they're not allowed in, because the Israelis are scanning our visa applicants in America and telling our government who to blacklist. It's not good.
Yeah, kind of feels like the COVID travel restrictions in a sense, doesn't it? And going off what Ruckus just said, he triggered OG super listener, friend, and colleague Whitebird to say the following, referring to the governments, right? Both sides, all sides of all Western governments basically said they murdered your grandparents and you clap like seals because it's Biden and not Trump. A lot of people fall into that category. It's a scathing commentary, but it's 100% true.
Yeah. Yeah. Basic stuff. Vincent says, sorry to say it, Patrick, but wake up. The USA is no more. I know we are. Obviously, that's why we're here. That's why we do what we do, to prevent that from happening. If they were granted due process, we would have known who was guilty and who were following the laws of immigration. Yeah. Basic due process. Very pro due process. In fact, that's actually one of the big problems is when the state discards due process, and it seems to be happening a lot these days. A lot, way too much. So just final one here. I just saw this, just came in on my feed. This is very disturbing, and this is from an account called Homeland Security News, and they're saying update tonight: Gaza has become quote hell on earth, says the Red Cross. And this account spinning it, saying it's time for Palestinians to leave the Gaza wastelands and migrate to other Middle Eastern countries. They deserve a better life. That's what Trump said. So this is the account, influencer account called U.S. Homeland Security News. It's at defense_civil 25. That's not a government account. They're LARPing as a government account, but this is a MAGA account, or a pro-Israeli account, because they're pushing a literal copy and paste line, which Trump said in the Netanyahu meeting just this week. That they need to leave. It's a wasteland. They should migrate to. So they're basically, it's open calling for ethnic cleansing. So kill them, bomb them, shoot them, and then tell them to leave.
That looks like an influenceable post right there. You've got your talking point, you've got your quote you're responding to, and then you have the image. And we saw that last week when we looked at this. People being delivered by their influencer management company who are funded by political action committees to do a post that looks exactly like that. I'm not saying I know that post is that, but it has all the hallmarks of that.
So let's look at this account real quick.
I bet you copy and paste that text and do a search, you'll find multiple accounts with the same post.
There you go.
Yep, that's a good thing, everyone. If you're listening, that's the good thing I think people should do. So here's the account. Look, they got the George Washington crossing the Delaware there, and then Apache helicopters, the banks of the Potomac, with all sorts of people.
Was that a Marvel comic book avatar for like S.H.I.E.L.D.?
Yes, it is.
What is that?
Yeah. Or it's a Grok AI image. U.S. Homeland Security News, blue check mark, as if that means anything these days. U.S. Homeland Security News and updates about the U.S. national security, border security, and news from D.C. Stay informed. Look at that, 371,000.3. These are the types of accounts that Elon retweets. That's why they have 371,000. These people put out such fake news, and they do it on a regular basis, and they get absolute traction for it. Oh, look at this one. Russian troops turned to stone by UFO in the 1990s. CIA. Declassified files. No real source here. Garbage. So this is what
this
Elon
is a
likes.
Must follow account right here. Jeez.
Yeah, this is what Elon likes. He likes these types of accounts, and he boosts them wherever he possibly can, especially if there's anti-Muslim or anti-immigrant types of stories here. And you guys know where my position is on immigration. It's common sense, follow the law, no open borders, everyone do their job and we'll be fine. But the issue is also spun out of control, and it's being used by a lot of, I think, nefarious influencers in order to gain some political capital that's not really there. And there is a touch of not more than a touch of hardcore racism with a lot of the stuff to drum up a war in the Middle East. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
That's we're old enough to remember post 9/11, everybody, pre-Iraq war. We lived through it. We saw it. We know how it works. It's the machine. And so with the war drums to Iran beating, they're looking for a solution in Gaza, and you see stuff like this. It's just insane. Imagine if that was happening to you living in, pick your state, oh yeah, we just bombed the crap out of you. Now you have to go. Sorry.
Kind of reminds me of some of the scenes I saw out of LA, and the people in LA kind of, not to this extent, but they're getting treated with just as much we don't care. You're not getting any help. Same with Lahaina, same with North Carolina, same with East Palestine. It's just every freaking time. Pat, there's a comment. If you could bring up the latest comment again from Iman Sudema there. It's the most recent one that they dropped on the YouTube side.
Is it a good thing about not finding your tribe? That one?
Yeah, that one.
Yeah.
I absolutely love this. Let me read it. The good thing about not finding your tribe is that you don't have to go along with BS out of Grupo loyalty. I suppose being expected to do that must be a problem for some members of a certain tribe. And, I love that in its specific sense, and I love it in its more general sense. That is a true comment from, a type of group that we've ended up calling the Social Rejects Club, which is us at the Boiler Room, because it's like we just find ourselves too left for our right friends, too right for our left friends, too conspiratorial for our non-conspiratorial friends, and not conspiratorial enough for our black pill friends. So it's like all these tribes I agree with in many points, probably not the tribe he's talking about, but there are people in that tribe too that I agree with in many sense. And they are blacklisted and called, self-hating Jews in many cases by those that want to form the fake reality around all this. But yeah, that's the essence of being in the Social Rejects Club right there.
And hated by the flat earthers because you're I had a
pretty kind to the flat earthers, Pat. In the early days when that was a thing, I was very, you're Saul Alinsky people. But now it's become so widespread. I'm just like, you guys go, you have fun with that. I'm open minded.
Exactly.
Bring it all.
I got in debate with him at a live event just last week at the UK Columns event. And there's flat earthers everywhere now, and I was just kind of I like a debate, so like people engage with me off stage at the break time or whatever. They know I'm up for a discussion, so I am very interested in debating flat earthers because I've been studying the counter arguments. So obviously, but it's they don't. I like this this comment, Hesher, you picked here because there's a typo in there, which is group. Out of Gru, it says Gruo loyalty. That kind of reminded me. I'm saying Groupon loyalty, because there's nothing as cheap of a bandwagon as Groupon. So let's call it Groupon loyalty. We've coined a new term, and I'll go there up with the $20 tuna sandwich, and I can top the $20 tuna sandwich. When I landed at SFO 3 years ago, I bought a lobster sandwich, lobster and hot butter.
What was that? $800?
It was expensive. That was a $50 sandwich. It was a $50, and it's not in a posh restaurant. SFO, you've been there. It's not very fancy.
Yeah, you buy the fanciest thing there, and you're still not really treating yourself.
Yeah. So a hot lobster sandwich with a bun, and a bag of potato chips, and was it a drink? I think it was a Long Island iced tea or something like that. And so that was 50. That was $50. $50. Used to be able to take a date out and have 2 for 2, and it would just be you could squeeze in for 50 there. I know this was a while ago, or at least a single person in a restaurant. But I looked at the bill, and that's what's interesting. I'm looking at the San Francisco bill. Oh, look at that. Employees union retirement tax. Like, oh, there's another 5%. San Francisco tax, California tax, and something to do with SFO transport. There were 4 taxes on the bill. So the tax on plus the tip, the tax on that was something like it was easily over 20%. Easily. So, I mean, on top of the extortionate rates in California, San Francisco, you got all of these taxes. Healthcare, it was for the healthcare of employees of state workers or something. Union workers.
And the expectation is to, yeah, you're right. The healthcare one, that's onerous. I've actually done a deep dive on that. It's crazy. So you're essentially you're expected to pay a $20 gratitude to your server, gratuity, I mean, and another 20% in taxes. So you're like 40% over the already exorbitant price there. I mean, it feels like you're dealing with the IRS this month or something.
Why is MAGA so flat Earth? Somebody said Z-Tap. So Iman Pudama says here, I don't quite understand what Groupon loyalty refers to, but I'm proud of coining a new term. That is the right winning attitude. So we'll clarify that. Groupon loyalty is like a cheap, easy bandwagon, basically. Cheap groupthink. Where there's no risk at all. You just like safe, jump on a Groupon loyalty. I know it's a little bit of a stretch, but we'll coin it anyway.
I'll give you an example. Say you're really into going to anything, the zoo, underwater basket weaving class, whatever, and it costs a certain amount of money, and you have to go by yourself. So Groupon people, they have an app, and they see all these different events, and they see that like, oh, okay, if I want to go to underwater basket weaving in Montana, there's a massive discount if me and 5 friends or me and 18 other people on the internet all sign to go to the same thing. We'll all go there together. We'll be at the same one, and we get a 40% discount. Isn't that fantastic? So it's kind of like that.
It's like stealing. I know restaurants that used to, oh my God, here comes a Groupon.
No, it's brilliant because none of those people most likely would go by themselves, and they all think it's too expensive. It's kind of in that category of, meetups or events or whatever. But if they know, they achieve this many attendees, they're all going to get the big discount, and, they can go have a social thing with it. It really is sort of like a tribal app for like various, on the ground interests.
Yeah. Why is MAGA so flat Earth? ? ZP Zap. That is the the burning question of our generation. The burning question of our generation.
You realize you guys just partook in one of the newest American traditions of inventing words. The president himself just invented a word this week. Did you guys see it? We have a new word in our lexicon. It's called panicins. That's right.
Yeah. I was like,
this is a term he came up with for people who are panicked and upset about his little tariffs. Not so little tariffs in some cases, but yeah, you're a panicking now. Way to go.
I thought it was a New York thing when I saw that. I thought maybe there's a New York thing that I don't know about because I was West Coast. I
figured maybe it was an animal that screwed another animal, and then someone ate it in a wet market, and it's going to be the nexus of our next pandemic.
It does have a chimeric sound to it, doesn't it? A panicking.
I can see a panikin fraternizing with a pangolin, and then some spike proteins flying about.
And then a bat comes down and takes a sample out of them, takes a bite, and then ends up in my soup. And next thing you know, I'm patient 0. Oh boy, everybody get ready for lockdown.
Your covfefe costs more. Your covfefe.
That's it. And a bird comes down and takes a little taste of it, goes over and drops a bird poop into the pigsty, and next thing you know, all the Chinese sweet and sour pork is infected with a new chimera.
Patrick, did you see the latest in this tariff news? What's going on here? We had the Black Monday event, which was not a big deal, I guess, apparently.
That was Orange Monday.
Orange Monday. Yeah, the cryptos and the stock markets recovered after a massive dump, and then a massive pump. And apparently somebody knew it was going to happen, so somebody might be in trouble for manipulating the market. Let me switch my tabs here. I've got to share this with you because I found this on X, and I found this very, very fascinating. This is from somebody called Two Blokes Trading. Donald Trump literally told Americans to buy the dip. 2 hours, just 2 hours before the market surge, he posted on his Truth Social and he said, buy, now's a great time to buy. And then just a couple hours later, he announced a pause on the tariffs. So I'm going to show you this. Here's where he made his announcement. This is where the markets were at. And then after the announcement, we had a giant pump. So people are accusing him of market manipulation. And in fact, he got caught on a hot mic moment, which I'm going to actually share this video with you, Patrick, so you can play it. Let me get that over to you here via this right here.
Yeah, we can play that.
This is fascinating. So people are saying the SEC needs to investigate over this right here. I dropped it in the private chat.
Okay. Yeah, we can play that. I'll try to set that up. You can actually upload that tab. I think Ruckus, I might even be able to play it there. Is that on X?
It's on X, yeah.
Okay, yeah, I'll bring that video up. Yeah, I think people need to hear that. It's kind of important. This is we played this on the UK column on Friday, and I mentioned it in my opening monologue here. This is like a new low point. Listen, guys, you know, we all don't have the ability to take big, massive short positions and put options, automated put options down. Not everybody is that financially au fait, but that seems to be like the way that you know, these guys really made out like bandits. Anybody that was playing the market, so to speak, here. Let's see if we get this. Yeah, let's bring this up on stage. Here's the video. So this is in the Oval Office. This is 3 days ago, I think, right? 3 days ago. Yeah. Oh, and the person here called to actives. Oh my God, Donald Trump's audio was caught in this video explaining that his billionaire friends made billions yesterday with tariffs and the stock market manipulation. SEC needs to investigate. I think it's way worse than that, quite frankly. As Trump would say, let's listen to this. Listen closely.
This is Charles Schwab. It's not just a company, it's actually an individual. And he made $2.5 billion today, and he made $900 million. That's not bad. You see how he's in financials. I've always been following. This is Charles.
Yeah, that's that must make you guys feel good.
Making America great again.
Yeah.
Woo.
$9.5 billion. What a day. Woohoo.
Making America great. I mean, this is the golden age. Are you guys feeling it?
Making billionaires great. No, my tuna sandwich is still $20, man.
My stomach is grumbling. Yeah.
My lobster sandwich is now 60.
Yeah, at least. Knowing San Francisco, it might be 90.
This is just too much, guys. I mean, look, we know insider trading goes on. It obviously should be illegal for people in government to be engaging in such activity, like Nancy Pelosi and everybody else in Congress. Okay, we all agree on that. But this is like a different level. It's like, don't rub it in the face of Americans, because not everybody's net worth is above 10 million or whatever these people are. The circles they run in, the firms they work for, these big hedge funds, private equity, all Trump's friends and buddies. Not everybody falls in. Some people are working for a living, and this type of thing, it's going to piss off a lot of people. And he's promising to bring manufacturing back and make America great. And we all know that's going to take a minimum of 10 years, even if you're working hard on it. And so what exactly are these people selling?
Yeah.
That's the question. What are they selling?
You know the acronym OBE?
OBE, out of body experience.
That's a great one. I wish that's what I was about to talk about. It means overcome by events. And I think that a lot of the things that we're seeing right now that many establishment folks and mainstream folks think are positive, net positives, or a switch in trajectory that would put us back somewhere, you know, like where we were in the past at some point, are a lot of those efforts are going to become OBE. They're going to become overcome by events. They will no longer be pertinent in the longer run, maybe even in the shorter run, you know, depending on how the financial market pans out. Like if we really are on a light speed track to a crash of the dollar and the inbound arrival of CBDC and stablecoin and all that stuff, just think of how much stuff that's going on right now that is completely will be considered overcome by events if something like that happens. And that's just one example of many. We could talk about nuclear war. We could talk about cyber attacks. We could talk about AI changing the paradigm in a way that is very difficult for people to imagine, but could change it overnight. So it's like a lot of these efforts that look so golden to those that just follow the the mainstream MAGA accounts. Like, it may not matter, folks. It may end up not mattering in the long run. It may end up not mattering who killed JFK, RFK, and MLK Jr. It may end up not mattering what you think about political Zionism taking root so many years ago and evolving to where it is right now. A lot of these things, I'm afraid, are going to be overcome by events.
Good concept. Overcome by events. Important one. So that's what we're doing, ladies and gentlemen. We are working out some of these important issues for you, for our audience as well. And I want to give a shout out to our colleagues here and what they're doing. We'll go around the horn before we break up for this amazing session of the Sunday Wire. Hesher, shout out broadcast this week. We've got the Pulse. We've got ACR and Boiler Room. What's happening?
We got a lot going on this week. This is going to be a really busy week. We're going to try to squeeze in a Boiler Room at some point. It will not be on Thursday this week. I have other things to attend to on Thursday. So perhaps Wednesday, perhaps Friday, definitely not Tuesday or Thursday. So Boiler Room, sort of a to be announced time for this week if all goes to plan. And I'll be doing I might be doing all 5 days of the week on the Pulse. I may have to. Actually, Thursday I won't be on the Pulse, but click on the Pulse Radio 2 at 3 p.m. Eastern to hear me for 2 hours over there, audio only. Having a great time doing that, and we need support over there at the Pulse. So if you've been considering becoming a member, please subscribe. Spoke with Mike Ryan the other day and got an update on the plans over there, and he's got a really good business plan going, and we're going to be making a lot of changes and improvements moving forward. We're doing that in the background all the time anyways. So, please support the radio and video, television style, streaming style news reports that you watch if you can. We appreciate that. Same goes for 21 Wire. Same goes for Alternate Current Radio. I belabored this last week. I'll keep it short, but we need your help because we're up against these influencers that are getting PAC money, and we're just trying to do the thing that we always do here. So your support's greatly appreciated, and at least just come listen. Thepulse.today is the website, and I think that's about it. We've got a lot of upgrades we're working on here at ACR too, so we're backfilling a lot of stuff and making improvements and all that stuff. It's slow going because it's just me and Ruckus working it at this point, but we're making pretty good progress there. So shouts out to all our Alternate Current Radio viewers and listeners. We're working on fixing our live audio widget that we've always had a Spreaker issue. So we haven't had that for a few weeks. We apologize for that. We are working on getting it fixed, and your support helps that. That's it for me, Pat. Oh, one more thing. Before we get out of here, one of the things that I want to talk about on this upcoming Boiler Room is this new tweet from the FDA. You'll find this interesting if you haven't seen it yet. Here's what they said. Today, the FDA is taking a groundbreaking step to advance public health by replacing animal testing in the development of monoclonal antibody therapies and other drugs with more effective human relevant methods. So no more animal testing from the FDA, only computer models. They're doing computer models. And if you've followed Patrick, myself, Ruckus, and our colleagues during 2020, 2021, and 2022, we have a lot of thoughts about that topic. So FDA is making a huge change here, and it benefits biotech. And it showed immediately after they posted that, because the labs that provide all the animals, their stocks went drastically down, and biotech and AI stocks went up.
Yeah, that inspires so much confidence. Computer modeling, should be safe and effective, I think.
Yeah,
they would never cheat or manipulate the data on any of that because they don't do that. They're good companies, the pharmaceutical
Well, it's
companies.
probably run by AI. You guys are safe.
Yeah, well, the company will be run by AI pretty soon. Just like they're just going to deliver you your thing, and it just arrives on your doorstep or whatever. sign in with the app. It'll be an AI business, an AI company. And what's in it? What doesn't matter. It's taken care of. It's safe.
Oh,
It's
I can tell you what's in it. Okay, so it works on 5 overarching bullet points. 1, AI-based computer modeling to simulate drug behavior and toxicity. 2, you're going to love this. Are you ready? Get your sick bag out. Lab-grown human organoids and organ-on-a-chip systems to detect toxic effects more accurately than animal tests. How's that sound?
I'm excited. You know,
we should be.
the level of my excitement is this level of excitement. I'll show you here. I'm excited. This much, that much, that much.
I knew
Are
it.
you guys feeling it? Are you guys feeling that corporate energy?
It's so good. I'm so inspired. I want to jump up.
Get it on the IPO. We're gonna pump this opening share price round up to get it up to 150 or something like that before me and my buddies rug it. Get in there early, guys.
Yeah, get your stocks now. Let me skip to the last bullet point. I'll save a few rounds for Boiler Room, but the last bullet point you will appreciate equally. In immediate application to new drug applications with a roadmap released and a public workshop planned. So that's the IND procedure that it's referring to right there, which traditionally has been, well, you spend a few years doing, injecting snot and toxins into a monkey or a rat or whatever, and you go from there. Now it's like, oh, we computer modeled it. It's cool. Here's our rapid, IND path. Here's your roadmap to public release, with it never have been put in an animal even. Not that I like animal experimentation. That's a whole nother, facet to this, but this is something that we've been talking about and warning about for a long time. And I think it's manifested in our face right now.
That's right. Oh, I'm on the Chris Sky, Chris Sky tip, which is don't comply and move on, live your life. It's the simplest one.
Yeah.
If we all do that, it's over basically.
Yep. That was my final round, Pat. Thanks for having me. This has been a really fun conversation. Thanks everybody in the chats. Really enjoy the interactions there, and looking forward to our next go round.
Ruckus, final thoughts. What's happening this week with you?
Well, I'm going to try to bust out some content of my own for the Daily Ruckus this week. Whether I do or I don't, it doesn't matter, because you'll still see me on the Boiler Room. You'll still see me tomorrow, Monday, on Weaponized News with Sam Cheney. And if I could highlight the website, Patrick, if you go back to my screen, I'll switch over here. I want to show you guys a quick update for everybody. Let's see if this is going to work. It is not going to work. It's not showing the screen. Well, if you were to go to Alternate Current Radio's website, oh, here we go. Hold on, let me try that again. That's not working. Damn it. Well, anyways.
Ruckus Vision.
Yeah, I'm stuck in the Ruckus Vision. Sorry about that, everybody.
Stuck in your own matrix.
There we
Program.
go. Let's try this.
You're just a program.
Yeah, it's not going to let me share my screen. Okay. Sorry about that. But if you go to the website, go to the website, alternatecurrentradio.com, you will see in the slider on the homepage a new edition called Midweek Wire. So I know some folks are having issues locating that on all the various places, at 21 Wire, at Rumble, on X. I had trouble finding them, but we are now compiling them, putting them in one simple place for you also to find as an alternative at alternatecurrentradio.com, as well as my my appearances on the Weaponized News. So I now have, if you go to my page, I've got it up now. Here you go.
Yeah, I love this graphic of the stack of pillar of radios. But
if you go to my page, scroll down, you'll see there's new additions for Ruckus on Weaponized News. So now you guys can find all of the extra stuff that all of us at Alternate Current Radio are doing. We're going to make a page and a spot for Hesher's show that he does at the Pulse, the Bryan McClain show. So it's all going to be a one-stop shop experience. And yes, I should hopefully have a new episode of the Daily Ruckus out this week. If not, then at least 2 or 3 of them next week. because that's the goal. I want to start pumping them out on a daily basis within a 2-week period. So we'll see. Got to ramp it up because it's a lot of work, guys.
Yeah, well, make sure you bring us next week or when we see you next a graphic for Weaponized News. We can put that up on screen.
Sure.
We got a good advert. So let's push out our marketing a little bit on some of those excellent independent media programs, which we're all contributing to create the tsunami that needs to happen. That needs to be a sustained tsunami that never ends, to remind the establishment that we are here, that we're paying attention, that we're noticing, that we're seeing things, and we are disseminating that to our audiences, and people are getting smarter and more active as a result. So that's why we're doing what we do. Thank you, Ruckus and Hesher. Appreciate you guys. All the best, ladies and gentlemen. That is all we have time for the Sunday Wire. We went a little bit over time, but not a bad thing, because a lot of important things to cover, and also it's great to give our audience a chance to weigh in through our comment feature, which we're able to aggregate. We've had over 4,000 people on the live stream, which we're very happy with those numbers. So appreciate all you guys and sharing the show as well. Also, we're doing much better on Rumble than we were before. So we appreciate our Rumble audience. I see the comments coming from Rumble as well as YouTube. So it's coming from different places. And we have quite a good audience on X. And we really appreciate you guys tuning in on X. And I believe we were up there in one of the top live streams. And then George Galloway came and sort of pushed us down to number 2 during the last hour. But that's okay. George is doing great work. That's all we've got time for, folks, and appreciate you. And if you appreciate us and you find it within your heart to support us, go to 21stcenturywire.com or look at my X profile. You'll see donate support link. That'll take you to our website, and it'll take you to this page. If you like what we do, if you like the Sunday Wire, weekly omnibus news program, you like the midweek wire, and you like what we've got, daily content, new reports every day at 21stcenturywire.com, please donate or subscribe and become a member at 21wire.tv. It's the only way we'll be able to grow. It's the only way we'll be able to keep doing what we do. And again, we really appreciate everything that you guys have done already this winter, is help us to launch a new program, make the improvements necessary for our website, to run multiple video platforms, to live stream to 6 or 7 different platforms. We can only do that with your support. So thank you very much, everybody, for everything that you have done there. That's all we've got time for. Big shout out to all of our friends, all of our colleagues, and we will wrap up this program with a little bit of music from our friend once again. Well, not Joseph Arthur, actually. We'll go for our friends from Finland, Red Rumble. And take care, you guys. Have a great week. See you on Wednesday.
For in the final analysis, we all inhabit this small planet, and we are all mortal.
Lately I've been watching the world gone mad, brothers and sisters full to take a stand, to hate their fellow man and other man. Divide and conquer is the acronym plan. Distract the people, control the story. Don't believe your lying eyes, you know me. Stay in power, no matter what. Playing with the doomsday clock. Turn a blind eye and gather your trust. Pushing us to turn to good. Corruption and lies Always try to look around for a smile, 'cause maybe it'll come around, maybe it'll come around, maybe it'll come around. We can see over, we can see past, we can see forever, but can we make it last? We can go under, but we can be brave, holding our hearts up, trying to find someone to save. Rise when you hear the cries, and then you make the scene. Run through the hemispheres and learn to live Bye.